can call the meeting to order, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Will do. Thank you, Rich. Welcome, everyone, to the Planning Board meeting for Tuesday, July 19th, 2022. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, notice was hereby provided that the Planning Board is meeting on today, Tuesday, July 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room 124, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Massachusetts. Alternative public access for the meeting was provided via a link with the online video conference software known as Zoom. The meeting will be recorded for future broadcast by the Norfolk Community Television. For more information, see the town website on the link for that link. So we will go ahead and get started. So first we'll do a few introductions. So on the planning board, we do have myself, Chad Peck, and Chris Montfort. We are both remote. So we will be doing all votes via roll call if needed. At Town Hall, we do have the rest of the board. We have John. Wait, I don't see John.
No, we don't have John out here.
Okay, we do not, excuse me. Great, thank you. So John Weddleton is not there this evening, but we do have Gary Sullivan and Eric Diamond, and our associate member, Melissa Mayo. And also I do see our town planner, Rich McCarthy, and I don't see Betsy. Is she there?
No, I'm filling in for Betsy tonight.
Okay.
We just have
Okay,
Bob Bullock, our building commissioner, with us.
perfect. I was gonna say, I see Bob Bullock there as well. So thank
And
you, Rich.
we do have a chair from the Zoning Board of Appeals in the room with us too.
Excellent.
Tim Martin.
Good evening.
Excellent. That is fantastic. Great. Thank you, Rich, for helping facilitate the introductions of everybody that's there. Sorry I could not be there in person, but have business calls and I'm away. I think that covers the introductions and getting the meeting started. Our first order of business is a workshop to discuss the proposed zoning bylaw amendments for the fall town meeting. And that includes a couple items, one being the table of allowed use, which I believe Bob Bullock is going to go over that and give us the highlights on that now.
Sure. Thanks, Chad. Bob Bullock, the building commissioner. And so, just so for everyone that isn't real familiar with zoning, I'm just going to kind of give an overview of what it is, these uses, where they are, and then, give you a description of everything that we did to get to this point. And then I have about 40 some odd articles on the changes that I'm presenting. So the zoning has all different tables for uses. So if you go to the very, in the beginning of the book, under D2, it has a schedule of uses and it has the different districts listed. Not all the districts are listed there, most of them. But then they send you to, some of these districts have asterisks, and like the B1, it'll send you to section I of the zoning. And it'll have another set of uses there that are either allowed uses, or they're special permitted uses, or they're prohibited uses. So then there's the other districts with the C1 off-highway, then you have the C4, the C6 districts. Each one of these all have their separate tables. So what we've tried to do is put all these tables together as one table. So we've expanded the number of columns in the table to accommodate this. But the reason we're doing this is we found that when you have something listed in D2 that's an allowed use in, let's say, the C1 district, the commercial district, you're supposed to go back to the C district in section J, and they have those allowed uses there as well. But in each one of these districts, the very beginning, there's the local standards. And the local standard basically supersedes anything that's in the D2 table. So if there's a use allowed in the D2 table that was under the C1 district, as allowed, but it's not written in the table in the C1 district under section J, then it supersedes that table that says it's allowed and basically isn't allowed. So we have this contradiction in a few places, and this is what prompted this, for me to do this. And in doing it, I want to give you the process. I took the D2 table and I put that into a spreadsheet. And then I took started with section I, which is the B1 district, and took each one of those uses, checked it against what was in the D2 table, and kept on adding more and more as I went through each one of the other tables. And if it was already in the table, an exact replica, then I didn't put it in twice. I just left it in there as once. But if there was a letter that was different, if it was a word that was different, then I put it in there. So the copy that you have in front of you has every use and every little nuance that's different. Even though there's some that they're exactly the same, other than one word is plural and the other one's singular. So we painstakingly did this to make sure that this is accurate. And when we were all done, we went over it 2 or 3 more times to make sure that we had a clean copy and went through and checked off each and every one of them. I just want you to understand, this was a long process to get to this point, to make sure that we've captured everything. So, so in doing that, you understand the problem, the overlap, but the other problem is a lot of things that you're going to see in this is you're going to see redundancy, that they really specified specific uses when it could fall under a more general use. And we'll get into that more as we go on. But what I want to do is I want you to take a look at this first page. If you could scroll down a little bit, Rich, down to nonprofit General Acute Care Hospital. This is where I'm going to, whoop, you passed it.
Oh.
Right there. So when you look at this, and you read down, it comes down to the time of admission in the opinion of the attending physician, and then there's a semicolon. Well, that's actually one use. And then they put in a second one, other hospitals, convalescent home, sanitarium, camp, nursing home. There's a semicolon after camp. That's a second use. And then there's a third use there. So then you go to the next line down, and that has the first use that I pointed out to you already. And these were all in different sections of the zoning, so I'm just copying them over. But I'm pointing this out to you because I basically, one of the first articles is to just delete that whole first one that has 3 articles in there, because it's not necessary. It's already been broken out in 3 different sections, and you'll see those 3 sections as the next 3. And then you have a copy of the 4th one. There's a copy, and the 5th one's another copy that's written a little differently. But we'll get into that when we get to those articles. I wanted to point that one out in particular because you're going to see that I'm deleting that whole thing, and while we're right on this page, I might as well show it to you. The other thing that I want to point out is there's asterisks up here in the districts. You have the residential, you have the B1 with an asterisk, and that asterisk stands for that sending you to section I of the zoning. And, the C1 would be sending you to section J. So all those are going to go away, though, and that's another article that's written for that. Because all of these, we've added in the D2 table, which is on page 25 if you have your zoning book, it has residential as the B1, and then B2 through B4, and then it has C1, and then it has the C2, 3, and 5. But we've added the C1 off-highway, we've added the C1, C-1B, C-1D, and then the C235 is there, and the C4 and the C6 is there. Just showing you the differences so that we're capturing all of these. There are two other zoning districts that aren't on here that there's no other uses that are in the book for those other districts. They just have basically have fallen under the C1 in the past, so. One other thing I want to point out before we get going here, if you can go to the last page of the document, and go to your last page on the document I gave you, you're going to see at the bottom here, C2, C3, C5, and I want everybody to know that C2 doesn't exist, C3 doesn't exist, C5 is all state-owned property along 115, except for the Pond Street Rec Center, which is now, the town owns it. And so there's a thought that maybe we should be removing all the uses in these categories, because they have categories in these districts that aren't there, except for maybe municipal. If the town takes over that land, then it could be used for municipal. And then B2 doesn't exist. B3 is basically where Dean Street and Myrtle Street come together, and it's the ice rink and the high tension lines there. That's the whole district. B4 is where Colin Waite Auto, I don't know how long you guys have been in town, but used to be a junkyard. This is up off the Lincoln Road. It's 15 Lincoln Road. It's right off, you have to go into the high tensions, and then there's a lot off to the side. And we've now have a solar field there. They've cleaned up the junkyard, and they put a solar field in there. So that whole district right now is all solar field. So some of these things are just things you might want to keep in mind, that when you're looking at these districts, some of them really, we may want to work on them later at some point. I tried not to make any significant changes here. There's some things that I'm going to bring up to you that are more than just a wording issue. It's some things that it lends itself to say, look at between these two uses, it's really this use, and that's the way I looked at it. And we'll point that out as we go through some of these articles. Do you guys have any questions up to this point? Chad, Chris, Tim?
Bob, I do have one question. To preserve kind of the grandfathering, it seems that we get involved, or at least me or the ZBA, we have a tendency to get involved with grandfathered uses and things like that, or we could. Historically, would we have a record to show what's changed? Because if some of these districts go away or not quite appear, they might have appeared 5 years ago, and something, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, and the use was legal at that time under that code, under that zoning code, and that has changed now. I just want to be able to go back historically and show at the time that use was put into place, it was legal at the time.
Yep. And I'm not changing any districts here. All I'm doing is pointing these things out, just as a reference, that when we are looking at these uses, you can see that they've put uses into these districts that really don't even exist. So it's just a point of reference for tonight.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
But that's no, there are some things that we are gonna see that, I am tweaking some things that we may not want to change, and this is just basically my opinion. I did this with my staff, but for the most part, I'm the one who made all these decisions. So if there's a problem, you know what, I'm all ears. So I'm really just doing this just to, it's a complaint I've heard from other people, you use tables all over the place. Why don't you just have it in one place? And based on the problems that we've had with some things that were superseded, it just lends itself to getting fixed. So, so with that being said, if there's no other questions or comments,
Bob, I got a question, or
Okay.
really maybe it's just a comment. So if I understand correctly, you took all the different uses that are spread out throughout the bylaws, put it into a use table, which I think is an excellent idea, because it eliminates any conflict that may have arisen from things being noted in one place and not the other, or vice versa, or things noted twice but are inconsistent. So you put that all together into this master table, and then if I understand, that was like step one, and then you're going to go into the other steps. And my understanding is the end result will be we go to town meeting in the fall with here's the use table with non-substantive changes, and then I'm assuming you're going to have some substantial changes as well that are recommendations for those.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
sure.
What about excluded uses? Are they still have to refer to the individual sections to get those, or?
Nope, they'll all be in the table. It would just be a no.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Whenever you see a blank space, that's gonna be a no. If it's not listed, it's a no, and that's written in different sections of the zoning already.
So there are places that it says no, but there's,
Right, where it's more, there's some places in, if you turn to the zoning and like on page 122, 121 it starts, prohibited uses in the B1 district. So it's very specific there that said no. So, I mean, if we just took out the no and had it blank, it would be the same thing.
okay.
So,
What does it mean here under scoreboard where the whole line is blank and the original table is also blank all the way across? So it was,
and that's the way it is in today's zoning. I don't understand it either.
so we're gonna continue to put it
Well-
forth ambiguous, or?
To me, it would fall under a municipal use, honestly. So if a municipal use is allowed, then I would think a scoreboard would be allowed, as long as it's a part of the municipality. So,
Rich, how does this impact or integrate with what E-code's doing for us
So
with
what, I think,
the previously approved, moving forward, at the last town meeting, we got the approval to move forward with the E-code to consolidate and streamline our bylaws. So how does this integrate with that?
do you want me to answer that?
sure.
So the codification that was
Yep.
done, it actually made the uses as an appendix on the D2.
Okay.
It did incorporate it into the other sections, but that's kind of what I've written into this as I've done the articles, is that we're doing away with all those sections and putting it into the one table.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have to go back and clean up, because I think we've approved the codification, but we really haven't got a clean copy yet.
Right.
To actually utilize. So, I think town council's been away, and I haven't been able to get in touch with them to clarify some of these things, but, whether we're gonna change the numbering that we have already in the system, and I have in some cases, to the way it's been codified, but I
Yeah,
haven't done
we-
it completely.
Just to add on to what Bob was saying, we got a copy, a Word version of the changes but that one, you can't follow it, frankly, because it doesn't have all the
There's no indentations.
indentations,
there's-
so, yeah, we need to
It's
get
just a
back to
running
town council
document.
to figure out how to make sure this formatting wise comes out understandable, because the Word
Yeah,
version.
'cause it's my understanding we're going to get that the E-code will be finished up by what, September?
Yeah, it should be,
So
Yeah, I haven't heard those dates.
if we go to fall town meeting in November and we're using we're going to, obviously, Bob, you're going to have to tweak this to update it for whatever the new E-code stuff is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I
so-
anticipate that.
right.
Yeah, okay.
It'll
yeah.
match the new new alphanumeric, or numeric
Right.
alpha.
Okay, so this is that draft, like, hey, based upon what we currently have, because we don't have the final E-code stuff, based upon what we currently have, here's what needs to change. Once we get the E-code stuff, this will have to be tied, updated and tied to E-code, what E-code put out.
Correct.
Okay. And one of the other comments, I was just looking at the different articles. So you have you got little snippets of the table, and you have all the columns, but there's no headers on the columns. So that's just something that needs to get fixed as well when you go to, before we go to town meeting.
Yes, you're right.
Yep.
It's kind of until I got to the end, it was kind of a formatting nightmare trying to keep it.
I bet.
For the most part, I got the districts in, most of them. It's the first few articles, I didn't, but I think you'll see most of them do have it, so.
Okay.
Again, I've already made notations that I've got to add these things, so.
Okay.
So do you want me to just start in Article 1 and we'll just kind of walk through each one of these? And if I start to lose you, just jump in, ask questions.
So I don't have any more questions. Does anybody else on the board have any questions before Bob jumps in?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Eric, Gary, Melissa?
Nope.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good, Bob. Dig in.
All right, so Article 1, this is on page 12. Vote to amend the Norfolk zoning bylaw use table D2 by combining the following sections. D2, Schedule of Use Regulations, I7, use permitted and regulated in the B1 district, J7, uses permitted and regulated in the C1 district, K7, allowed and special permit allowed regulated uses in the C4 district, and L7, allowed and special permit allowed regulated uses in the C6 district into one use table or take any other action relative to that. And then I put a comment on each one of them, and, some of them I'll read, some of them are just pretty understandable. So Article 2 is to see if the town will vote to amend the Norfolk zoning bylaws by amending sections I2, J2, K2, and L2 local standards by removing the words D2 use regulations in bold where it says D2 use regulations. This is to take out that superseding section, and that will be the table that we'll use for all our use tables. So, any questions on any of that?
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. Article 3, and this is how slight some of these differences are. I'm not going to read the first section, I'm just going to explain it. The uses, right now, they're listed as medical, dental, and optical clinics, and then there's another one that's medical, optical, and dental clinics. It's just the order that they put it in. The districts I got to put in there, but basically this is in the B1 district and the C1 district, that these yeses are in. And to me, to read medical, dental, and optical clinics, and then I just carried down the same uses, saying yes. So this is basically what you're gonna see in a lot of these. Article 4 is what I was explaining on that first page. I want to delete that whole bylaw because it's already broken out into the 3 bylaws with those uses. So, any question on that?
No.
Article 5, this is, again, one of those things that are, you're seeing 3 different articles, all basically saying the same thing. I wrote, this is a repetitive bylaw, but it is a change with health club in the small print use, whereas the other 2 uses say healthcare. So we are proposing dropping the health club use and just utilizing that all capital uses. And whenever you see everything in all capitals, that means there's a definition in the zoning for it. So,
With the caveat, that will be gone with E-code. If you remember, you might all remember that.
Right.
But, so with E-code, there is no capitalization and a definition. That was
There's still
one.
definitions?
There's still definitions, but you don't have that really clear indication that we define it somewhere.
Can you link to the definition? Like,
So so what they had said in there is that you can word search back to the definition. So But they
The
don't.
user would have to do that.
Really?
A little beyond
I
that.
wasn't aware of that. It's not capitalized or anything?
No.
Huh. I totally missed that. That's okay.
That's not awesome, I know.
No, it's not awesome.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
And having it capitalized, I mean, yeah, it makes it very helpful knowing that that's a defined word throughout
Yeah, I wonder if we could, if this becomes an appendix to the zoning, because that's what they did with the D2, then, maybe we could keep the capitalization that's in all these use groups, because that's essentially, most of the definitions are based on the uses,
right.
so they're defined.
Okay. Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a good question, though, for them. So, Article 6, we have a small daycare, family home,
You go back to the
Oh, I'm sorry.
club piece, so that
sure. The health club use?
that's not listed as a use anymore?
Correct. There is, in the zoning, this is something I missed. There's different groupings. So you have, in the very beginning, going back to the page 1, Rich, you have public and semi-public uses. These are all, titles that, are in our current table. And then, on page 3, it goes to transportation and utility uses. So when I was doing these, I tried to, make sure that I put them under the right categories for the most part. You have residential uses. So when you're looking up certain things, you can hopefully narrow it down by looking at these headings. Agricultural use, then you have commercial use, then you have parking and storage uses, and then recreational uses and miscellaneous uses. And I believe health club was in one of these other sections. Indoor commercial recreation,
Is there a way, maybe these can be alphabetized within a group, so you can find these, or how are they organized right now?
just randomly, based on, starting with the D2 table, so. And,
Yeah, so within the sub-table categories, like transportation, residential, they're random, not alphabetized.
Right, I think
Yeah.
it might make sense to alphabetize them, so you can
it may,
these
I
things
don't,
up.
if you can do it just based on each section, I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so transportation.
A, B,
And
C.
then it'd be alphabetized under transportation, residential, et cetera.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
this is a good example, though, of,
yeah, trying to
Someone
find
may-
that health club, if it's
may-
in here or not.
may want to just keep that, it is in the definition.
The health club doesn't fall under anything else?
I thought it did, so I'm just doing a quick glance, and I'm not seeing it, but
Yeah, we certainly don't want to, obviously, delete health club, that's an important thing these days. So it's not-
Oh, I
I'm
see at
pretty
the top
sure
of
it's-
page 2, facility for physical therapy, rehabilitation, health club,
There you
sports
go.
medicine.
What's that?
The top of page 2,
Yeah, but that's what we're working on.
oh, that's the one you're trying to kill?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, facility for physical therapy. Yeah, rehab, health club, sports medicine. Yeah, that's the one that is being taken out. But
Well, yeah, so indoor commercial recreation has a building within which the public is invited for a fee or membership, charges participants to participate in athletics or recreational activities, including but limited to swimming, exercise, weight training, running, tennis, squash, racquetball, ping pong, bowling.
That was the definition for what?
Indoor commercial recreation?
Indoor
Yeah.
commercial recreation.
Yeah. And of course, in our existing bylaw, the health club
Yep.
and sportsmen's facilities under that same definition.
So it is covered, under, that's
Under
staying,
our existing.
right.
Where did you read that? long definition from?
From the.
You have our,
Yeah, but what,
so if you go on to page 10,
right, but which use, what definition was that?
indoor commercial recreation?
But where did you find that in the definition of,
It's in,
Oh,
the five,
district? It's
yeah.
in this, well, right now it's in the C. So,
it's on,
oh, and I'm sorry, the table you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see.
I don't see those words, indoor recreation in that.
they're here, it's under recreation. Right here. Indoor commercial recreation. On page 10.
So, yeah, so since health club is part of indoor commercial recreation, it's not needed in that other.
Correct. Yep.
And in fact, by
But then
having it in the other one, because the other one only allows C4 and C6, but under indoor commercial recreation, it's also allowed in C1. So now you got a conflict, right?
Well,
It's better by taking that word out, like you have proposed.
Well, it's
The
not
word.
listed in 4 and 6.
You said page 10?
So I have it on page, well, where is that? Page 25 in Article 33, it just has indoor commercial recreation, but I didn't find, I'm looking up
Well,
top too.
on page 24, indoor commercial recreation, it's in the C6, C4, and C1.
C1, all right,
So that's in Article 33.
yep.
So I would
Sorry.
recommend that, that we kind of go through this, and I would suggest each one of you to highlight something that you go, I'm not sure, to go back and kind of do the research back on it, because we're never going to get through this.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's a good exercise to really to take a look at it. And I tried to do it when I was doing it. I did this over a month ago, and I, frankly, some of it, I don't remember all the details to it, so.
Yep.
But,
No,
Is that
I
okay,
think
Eric?
regarding Article 5, I think it's appropriate to remove that, because otherwise because it's part of something else.
yep,
It's not needed here. Health club is not needed here.
Well, maybe that's a comment in addition to this comment that's here to say,
Yep.
"Hey, we're gonna get to this in Article 33. Or
Health club,
bundle
yeah,
these
health club
together.
use is part of indoor
yeah,
recreation.
I'll just say health club is part of indoor recreation.
Yep. Mentioned in Article 33.
It wouldn't matter that the health club definition, I think, and I just lost it, but I think it mentions external uses as well, like outdoor and indoor.
Well, you have indoor commercial recreation, and you have outdoor commercial recreation, and the definitions are very similar,
Okay, gotcha.
Sure.
As long as they're both covered, yeah.
yeah. But
All right.
that's exactly the exercise that we have to go through when we do these things, and
Yep.
so, so Article 6 talks about the daycare, family home, and I just kept the daycare, family home as all capitals,
Yep.
knowing there's a definition for it, and carried all the uses down, so. If you guys want to just give me a heads up that you guys are good to
Yep,
move on.
that makes sense. Move on.
7, this one has quite a few of these, School of Nursing, Laboratory Technician Skills, Physiotherapy, with dormitory facilities ancillary there too. Now, the next one doesn't have with dormitories, it's worded slightly different, it says and dormitory facilities. And then the third one says in any dormitory facilities ancillary there too. So I went with and dormitory facilities ancillary there too. Basically, I just took all three of them and, worded
Yep.
it so that it's included.
Okay.
Okay?
As a side note, Bob, you broke these all out as separate articles. Is that, so
Well-
you're proposing that these are all separate instead of lumping them together?
Yeah, and I did that only for this exercise. And then I think the next exercise would be, okay, we're gonna lump all the ones that people just don't have any issues with as one. Let's do article, like Jay, a lot of times the moderator does, let's do Article 5, 8, 7, 10. And they voted all as one.
We did with E-code where it was, hey, this is just language cleanup.
Yep,
And then here's minor changes and then here's substantive changes.
correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And if you, as we're going through this, if you want to say that it's minor, I'll mark it right now, and then we can just kind of move on with it, but,
Yeah.
if
That's
you
a good
guys.
thing. I mean, to me, this is a language cleanup. So, yeah.
Okay.
In Article 7, I mean, is lang. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay, we could do that. We could easily put that into 3 buckets, like you're talking about, and just say language cleanup, minor, major. Neither. Okay.
6 and 7 are both language cleanup.
3 as well.
And 3.
And then I guess 4 would be minor, right? Because we're really doing a little bit more than cleanup there. Oh, no, we're just deleting. Yeah, that's cleanup.
yeah, that's cleanup, yep. 1, 4. 3 is minor.
Well, 3 is just a language cleanup, isn't it
Yeah.
not?
It's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Article 5 with the Health Club, I think that's kind of minor. Somebody may.
I would
want-
call that minor, yeah. Because you are removing something because it's referenced elsewhere, or it's part of something else. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to Article 8.
Yep.
So this is where there's very specific uses that generally, as an inspector, I'm looking at it and I'm like, if somebody was coming in to say the video conferencing and/or conference facility, I would just call that a office building. And so there's a use office and office buildings. There's also just offices, is another use, office or meeting room of a nonprofit service organization. The nonprofit status usually doesn't make any difference to us, but, or the share work facility. All those, to me, all fit under office or office buildings. So,
The only thing with this, and not that I disagree with just cleaning it like this, is that like something like shared work facility, right? That could be some sort of co-location type facility, and from a business perspective, like their liability is different, right? The insurance they have to carry for that building. So I'm not sure if that's actually a different use. To me, it's all like, yeah, okay, these are offices. Right, these are office buildings.
It's also transient in nature. You're expecting people from different towns to utilize those types of facilities as opposed to knowing and having a readily available list of individuals who are going and expected to come and go from a location like you would with a typical office building.
Yes, I'm not sure if we want to keep that distinction between, we could just treat them all as offices, because for us, this is just, we're talking land use and zoning. We're not talking about, what the actual specific use of the building is, right? Like, if WeWork wants to come in here, what's left of that company, and say, we want to buy something on Main Street and have either fractional ownership or, fractional office space or transient office space, from a zoning perspective, would that matter to you?
no.
Okay.
See, I look at it like you have a lobby, with a admin staff there, and then you've got 5 different offices that people come in and use those offices. To me, it's an office building. Whether, different people are using it, doesn't really matter to me as long as I'm doing office work, it's office work. That's the way I would look at it as a zoning enforcement. If you guys think differently, then, we can pull it out.
I think that's fine.
Seems like it's a
I think it's fine, yeah.
office, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So leave it the way it is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Say minor?
I would say minor, yep.
I do have a question, just pause a moment. I know Bob's explanation, I just visually the whole thing of having no and then blanks is kinda, I know it's kinda tough from it just,
You just want blanks, or you want no's?
it feels like it should be one or the other. The mix match just kind of, just visually seems weird, you know, but anyway.
Just
I'm with you, and I like this because if it's just blanks, then the special permits and the yeses stand out more,
yeah.
right? If it's all no's, that's easily confusing to the eye.
I did it the other way for a little bit, and I was like, oh my God, this is painful looking at it. So
Capital N-O.
Bring up a good point that you're right, because I was wondering, I'm like, why are there blanks? And so I just immediately kind of assumed the blanks meant a no, but then I was like, well, but there's no's in there, so the no's must mean really no.
yeah,
And there's wiggle room with the blanks, but we have special permit for the wiggle room, so okay.
In the existing bylaws, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a couple of spots where it says blank means no. Right,
correct.
because I've
Yeah.
seen that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like,
That still remains, yeah.
right, it's clear in terms of notation, but it might not be clear to, John Smith, who's just quickly flipping through trying to find if landscaping is an applicable use of his land.
Right.
Something
And-
to think about.
We're carrying over the worst parts.
But when you make this one big table, then it's real easy to have a note that says, if it's blank, that means no.
Right, and I was gonna just say that, at the very end of it, we can make those notations that, this is, whenever you see a blank space, it's a no. But, there is another article in here, I'll just say it now, that on the C1 off-highway, well, all the allowed uses in the C1 district are allowed in the C1 off-highway. And I haven't put it in here because I just put in exactly what we had now in the zoning. But that would be something where I would be putting all these yeses in that are on the C1,
Copy them forward.
and putting it into the C1 off-highway, so, just so you know. So it's gonna get a little bit busier, with this too, so.
Easier but better, Bob.
Right. And there's no need to take that to town meeting because that's already exists. It's just the table needs to be updated to reflect that.
Correct. Yep.
Right. I
Yeah.
got you.
I just wanted to come here with a clean slate, to show you
Yep.
what we have, and then go through this and get everybody's take on
I
it.
feel for you, Bob. This is a mess. Wow.
Well, you haven't seen anything yet. Some of this is even
Oh.
worse.
Now I'm really worried.
I will say my lawyer hates our bylaws.
Oh, these bylaws?
Yeah, hates them. So if I show him this, he might be a little more happy.
Well, all right, so Article 9, this is about offices again, and, you look at this, and the differences between these is really insignificant. One says ancillary to a permitted use, and the next one says ancillary to a permitted use, and then semicolon banks, and then professional office where patients and clients come, professional office where patients or clients are seen by appointment. There's just such little nuances to these. To me, I went back to, this is an office building, office is an office building, and put it in again. So these are the things that I look at and I'm like,
So we would delete these.
yeah, I mean,
Just make them into office.
do I care whether it's a general office or a professional office? Where
Well, there's
patients
two
come?
that have special permits.
Right, yeah, you took away the special permits. And C
Did I?
235.
Oh, that was an oversight.
So would this
See,
change
2,
to
3, and
SP?
5. Oh, you know why? I know why I did it. I started to think that the C2, 3, and 5, there is nothing there to build on.
That's right. You did mention that. There's
Yeah.
nothing in C2, 3, or 5.
Right.
Okay. But I think you need, there needs to be some sort of explanation, because obviously somebody's gonna say, well,
Yep.
we're losing the special permit for these districts. Well, there's nothing in that district.
Right.
When we say there's nothing in that district, there's no future potential that.
There's no
will-
district that's,
Okay.
that's actually a C2 or a C3 district.
Gotcha.
And C5 is all state-owned property other than the Pond Street complex.
So was there
But
a
you can't-
C4? Like, that's confusing to me.
I think they just put it in there in case they found another section that they want to call C2 or C3.
That makes sense, but when I see special permit for C3, for something very specific, like a general office where clients or customers are seeing, it's like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Who is
So
they?
basically, right now, we have special permit for some districts, well, two of the 3 districts, we don't even have land assigned to that, so.
Right.
And we're not worried about keeping it for future use, right? Because whenever we cross that bridge, we'll handle it then. if we
Then we'll
need a
set up
C4.
the uses for that district, yeah.
Right. So do we need to reserve anything, like, would we want to keep that special permit for the C5?
Again, if the town buys that land, they're gonna own it as a municipality, and I
Okay,
think the municipal use is allowed in that.
Okay.
So, and then if we decide as a town to sell the property to businesses, then we would set up what we want to have in there for
okay.
a business.
It kind of feels like,
But nobody can do anything with it until there's any kind of use, right?
Right. And the state can do whatever they want, so
Right.
it's, doesn't matter what we have for a use on that.
the idea,
So I think-
the idea of reserving things has got us to this point before, so it seems like it probably should kind of phase that out, and then if we need something, we can always add it, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
It's an easier to sell to say, keep it a special permit, you didn't take away any uses.
Oh. Yeah, I could do that.
Right, because it's less explaining it.
Yeah.
that-
You
and
didn't-
Eric's right, it's an easier sell, less explanation, if you just
Yeah.
leave it as special permit. It doesn't hurt anything, because we don't really have anything assigned to it.
And, you know, I think that's really the, what I started with for the most part, and then I started to really think about, well, there's nothing there, so why would we have any of these zoning things? But I probably should have just stayed on course with exactly the way it was written, so I'll fix that.
So you want to keep the districts that don't exist in there?
Right. I'm not
Keep the-
changing any of the
permit as
districts.
Special permit, or the use as special permit.
Shouldn't the
But-
districts just not be there?
I think if we leave them there, if the town decides to take a section of a parcel and say, okay, we're gonna call that, well, we have the C2 that's not being used, we'll use the C2 or the B2.
But then you'll have to update all of the, whether it's special permit or whatever it may be. So if you leave it in, confusing, I think, and take it out, then you could just put it back, if you need it, and have everything.
To like optics is what I think Eric's saying. When we go to the town meeting and we try and sell this to the community and say, you know, these are all the changes we're going to make, they're going to notice an entire district just disappearing and there's no more use for it. And it's going to generate more questions and focus the conversation to where it's really not going to be helpful or useful.
These are
And
grammatical changes.
really take away from what we're trying to accomplish.
Combining things.
Yeah,
So if we leave it in and just not worry about it, it's not going to affect anything negatively. And then
Yeah, I guess
subsequently,
there's
if we
probably other
choose
things
to,
that
we
are
can
more
deal with it
important.
later.
Yeah.
Oh, but I think, yeah, to piggyback off of Chris's point, but it still can be done, just not at this time, you know, right? So
Right.
separate
Right.
it to a completely different town meeting, so it's not like, you know,
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I like that a lot, Rich. I think that makes the most sense, because I agree with what Melissa's saying, but I also agree with what Chris is saying,
Yeah.
and I think to stay with I think Chris is right. You're gonna immediately start with some negativity on why are we losing these districts. So I think we hold off on that till another meeting, maybe next year or something. Let's get this all cleaned up and then really look at it. Go, okay, this could just go away.
Yeah, see what's left
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, because when
Yeah.
Bob first came to me, said we want to do this, I said, oh, this is an awesome idea, and I said, oh my goodness, this is gonna be something at town meeting.
Well, this is 47 articles, right, and just with this never mind touching the sign bylaws or the
Yeah.
solar, so.
Oh my God. Well, that's why I'm kind of thinking we lump this into three, like I
Well,
mentioned earlier.
And I'm hoping that that's,
Yeah.
everybody agrees to do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so. Move on? Everybody
Yep.
good?
So so Article 9, I would say, if everybody's in agreement, Bob, if you change that to special permit, then I would say this is just
Minor?
a minor change.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Who's gonna remember to remove C3, 4 next year?
Right.
Rich is going to put it on his list.
Rich is going to put it on his running list. Yep. And there's some B districts we don't use either, right?
Correct. B,
Yeah.
B2, yeah,
Right.
and 3. Yeah.
All right. So Article 10.
Article 10, so this is wireless communication facilities, and they're basically for each district. Each one had a District 1 and 3, a District 2, the next one is District 1, then the District 3, then District 4. So we just took them all into one, and then based on, which district, we put in zoning, special permit by the zoning board, and filled it in. So everything is covered, out of all those articles, are all covered in the one that I'm amending to, so.
So you got some that special permit by zoning and some that special permit by planning. I mean,
And some were previously not defined, they were special permit.
Right. Well, and when it says SP, that was from the original D2 table, which is basically, everything in there was zoning board.
right.
So I left it as SP right now. I'm going to change it. If everybody's in agreement, I'm going to change it to SPZB for the zoning
Yep.
board.
That was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the board has to kind of, maybe, and might be the time to do it, is, do we change this so that the planning board handles all the wireless communication things? Or do we leave it all with the zoning board? Because you have both of them in here. You
Right.
have planning board on some. Why? I can't answer that, Some of the zoning goes back to 1968, a lot of it.
So is this conversation specific to this one, Article 10, where you change SP to SPZB, or is that throughout everywhere?
Well, I think this in particular, you have conflicting boards handling it.
Right, but you're not
Right.
talking about changing special permits throughout other,
No, I'm just talking about this right now, but I
This
think,
would be one to pick a path, planning board or ZBA,
yeah,
which would be actually good for both boards and applicant, because it's quite a maze to figure out.
I'm saying, the more general is, we get special permits all over throughout these other ones we've been through, and it doesn't specify if it's zoning board or planning board.
if it's SP, it's generally zoning board. It is,
So,
it is
so
zoning
can
board.
SP become SPZB?
Yes, I just didn't want to do it until the second phase of this process. I wanted you to see what was in the book, the way it is, and then have these discussions to say,
I think if there's a comfort level with how we're kind of going, I think we could go a little bit more, right? You wanted to keep it, build up to see if we're, everybody's on board, right?
yep,
Gotcha. I see what
You
you're
gotta
saying.
sell it too, in
Right.
terms of,
I can sell
making
stuff.
the presentation.
And this in particular, to me, you want to put it as one board, because
I agree.
you're dealing with the same issue all the way
Right.
across, so.
Yeah. It shouldn't be split amongst two boards. So it should be one.
So you have one zoning board member against the rest of you.
I'll
I
support the
think-
planning board
I
on
think
this
it's
one.
just a matter of what makes the most sense. I mean, pick your pick.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
if
about
the
this
zoning
one.
board's
You have to-
comfortable with doing it, I would let the zoning board do it. For all of the wireless, for all the districts under wireless.
Yeah. All right. Let's, it could be ZBA. The other one I would say when we get, I don't know, we'll touch on the solar, probably should be all planning board, I think.
Well, the planning board's only on two, and the zoning board is 4 of them.
There you
Right.
go, got the answer.
You got, right.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I think the zoning board should just take the other, if they're okay, let them take the other two.
Yeah.
That way they're covering everything.
All
And
right. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
change this to SPZB for each one of them.
That would be very helpful.
So
Yes.
because we're
Yeah.
changing
I
this. So, say major. Okay. Okay, any other questions to that? Moving on to Article 11. So, these next 3 are articles about solar and wind. And we have roof-mounted solar photovoltaic system and roof-mounted solar photovoltaic system accessory to a commercial building. It's roof-mounted. It's gonna always be on a building. And it's always yes, to put it on a building. So I put roof-mounted solar photovoltaic system, and it's yes across the board. So,
Okay.
That makes sense.
pretty minor. You guys okay with that?
Yep.
Sounds like just language to me,
Yep.
instead of minor even.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, it's just a language cleanup.
yeah.
Not even
Are we
minor.
Are we delineating between language cleanup and minor?
No, I'm just going,
Okay.
it's
I thought
minor,
buckets.
I think we should probably stick with the 3 buckets if we can, because the language cleanup, right,
Okay.
that's basic, that's easy sell. Just say, hey, this, we've done this, how many town meetings in a row now at this point?
okay.
Minor is a little more complicated, but
Is it-
only a little bit, right?
Yep.
And then the major stuff is stuff.
The only thing, I wonder if people are gonna get it with the language, in minor. Are they thinking minor's gonna be, oh, wait a minute, maybe we gotta really analyze minor? That's all I'm thinking, so,
We can, we can work on slides and handouts and stuff. I think that's worked well in the last couple of town meetings to get stuff like this understood and mitigate questions before they get,
So we
charged
go
up.
with
in
the
the micro-
similar language, right, so we'll say insubstantial, maybe instead of minor or major.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what I
from a
think we
wording
u-
perspective. it
Yeah,
can be-
word, that's what we used that, I think, with the recodification.
You're right, that's what we did. That works.
Substantial, that word has a little bit of a scale to it.
yeah.
Maybe major.
These guys are real professionals. They're using big words.
All right, so basically, the ground-mounted solar photovoltaic system, and then we have accessory to a residential building, and then accessory to a commercial building. But they're all the same thing, special permit all across the board. So I just went with ground-mounted solar photovoltaic systems, special permit across the board. So,
Now, this one is ZBA, special permit,
yep,
and then with the solar bylaw, it's, depending on the scale of it, it's either minor, well, site plan review. Would it make,
so you're adding, and we had this discussion before too, that this may be the time to put a size limit to this, on this ground-mounted, but right now, there is no
yeah,
size differential,
well, we can
except,
keep it the way it is, but it is on the list, I think,
yeah.
Chris.
Yep, I think that's a good thing to add to that running list, Richard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we'll add it to the list.
Yeah, because I think it's gonna, at this point, it would just complicate it, and muddy
Yep,
the
no, I
waters,
agree.
and, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just writing some notes in here. So then we have wind energy system, And the same thing, accessory to a commercial building, and then accessory to a residential building. Again, all special permit. So I put wind energy system, special permit. So again, same thing, language.
Yep. Just language.
Do we have any wind?
Huh?
Do we have any wind?
No. Article 14, so we have meeting rooms or buildings accessory to age-restricted housing, meeting rooms or buildings accessory to assisted living facilities, and
Fire station, like I know they're setting up a meeting room in there. It could be the library. They have certain meeting rooms that are available to the public. I wouldn't necessarily classify those as office buildings. Would you, from a zoning perspective?
yeah, I mean, if they, you're gonna always have multi-use buildings, and we're gonna categorize those, if they're gonna actually rent out to different uses. When you talk about the fire station, that's gonna be it's a municipal use, so it's always gonna be allowed, you know, whether it's a meeting room or something else. If they're talking about, meeting rooms within an age-restricted housing, I mean, it's age-restricted housing, and as long as it's part of that building, they're the only ones that are gonna be using it, so it's really not gonna make a difference what the rooms are used for, as far as I'm concerned. If they were gonna actually rent out, different space to different companies, then they're gonna, be under that office's use. That's the way I would look at it. Whether it's an offices or office building, it's always gonna be for that use. It's kinda, like 65 Holbrook, it's a huge building, it has all different spaces, that they lease out, with different businesses. A lot of them are just offices. Some are dentists, some are doctors, some are lawyers. It really doesn't matter to me. It's an office building.
So if we have office, do we need this at all?
What do you mean?
Are you gonna have office and office buildings here and office buildings back? in
Yeah, yes,
other page?
that's why you're seeing all the other responses on this. It's all,
So that's what my question was, where did these other
they
columns
came
come
from the other columns that were already done.
So you gotta link this back to say that these other uses came from articles, other related articles?
Yeah, I could do that, yeah. Attach those,
Looks like Article 8 was office. And replaced with office and but now with this one, you change this, this no in the third to last column to special permit.
oh, yeah.
And that's gonna happen back
Yeah,
in 8.
I'm gonna have to go through all of those no's in C2, 3, and 5, just double check them and put the special permit in there, yeah. I was doing it based on there wasn't anything there, so. So I'm gonna put that as a review, C2, C3, C5, 4. Okay. Any other, do you want to change that, or do you want to keep that? Comments?
Maybe you list those other articles, right?
I did,
Okay.
yeah, we've got them down here. I'll put those in the comments. Chris, would you rather keep it the way it is and not put them into office and office buildings?
I think there's definitely an opportunity to consolidate. I'm just wrestling mentally with how. I don't think it's as simple as calling it as an office space in my mind.
Daycare ancillary to assisted living facility and adult daycare. And so this is allowing for the adult daycare in an assisted living facility in the C4 and C6 where it wasn't before, just based on the adult daycare was allowed in the C4 and C6. Or do we just leave it the way it was and have the two uses in there? Again, these are my comments, so my suggestions, and I'm open for what others think.
So the big change is it's allowing assisted living in C4 and C6 that are currently not allowed. Just adult daycare is allowed in everything,
Correct.
or it's
No.
allowed in the three that you
Yeah,
have.
the adult daycare is only allowed in the C4 and C6. And the adult
And
daycare
it's
is,
so in B1 it's adult daycare that's ancillary. So wow, okay,
so that's what I went with.
yeah. I know, what's the rest of the board think?
So this would be a change on, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interject before the board, but I think at some point adult daycare should be a standalone use. You know,
Right.
in the B1, for sure, even C, you know,
So
but that's not for today,
right.
fortunately. But
So Rich, you're thinking that at some point they should be split apart, and
Yeah.
it should be adult daycare, and then it should be assisted living facility. Is that what you're thinking?
Care of assisted living, but also adult daycare can be a certain, I've worked
Right.
with them before as a standalone use, not part of assisted living,
Right.
because it's a growing demand, and it's, we may not necessarily get assisted living, but we still would have that demand for that use that I'd like to.
This is a pretty big change. What you
So-
have here, Bob.
I can just eliminate Article 15, and we just leave those just the way they are in the zoning.
2 rows instead of 1.
Yep.
I think we should do that. What's everyone else think?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But I would then like to come back, like I just said about, yeah.
Yep. So put that on the list that we'll revisit next year.
Okay.
Got a busy year.
It's always busy.
All right. Article 16 then. We're good to move on?
Yes.
Yep.
Article 16, so we have the use of trailers, buses, mobile units for residents in excess of 30 days. And then we have use of trailers, buses, and mobile homes for residents in excess of 30 days. I put the dwellings, and the reason I did that was based on the definition in the zoning. So a dwelling,
Does a dwelling encompass both units and homes? Like, is this,
it's any structure or building used in whole or in part for human habitation. So it's a mobile structure used in whole or in part for human habitation. That's the way I looked at it.
okay, so if somebody has a shed on wheels that they're trying to live in for more than 30,
Yeah.
that covers it type of thing.
Yeah.
Not that I think that's an issue in town, I'm just saying, in theory.
Well, it is an issue with these mobile homes or mobile dwellings that they do,
Can be.
oh, my parents are coming for the week or
Right,
the
right.
month, and they're living in the trailer out in the backyard, so. So it does come up.
Well, that makes sense to me.
Does anybody have an issue with me changing it to dwelling? Would you rather leave it at homes or units?
Are we also, and I apologize, I don't have the document in front of me, the time frame associated with that?
Is that consecutive days, or is that over a year, or is that you can't, that's
Yeah.
part of the definition, or not change the definition?
Generally, if they're there for 30 days, more than 30 days, then that's when I get called, so. And generally, I'm gonna look at it that you can't use it for more than 30 days, whether it's consecutive or for the year, so. If I get called out there 2, 3 times because they're there for 2 weeks, and then they're there for another 3 weeks, and then another 3 weeks, I'm probably gonna say something to them, so. But
This doesn't-
that would be changing that bylaw completely if we change the number of days or anything.
Yeah, so we're keeping the number of days in, I think.
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
The only thing I was changing was the dwelling, just because there was a definition for it that kind of made it a little clearer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
That doesn't affect parking or
Parking,
parking of that vehicle?
there is another article about where you can park a trailer in the zoning. This doesn't pertain to it. This is just using it. So I would say that this is a major change or substantial, just because I changed the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Article 17, so this is kind of odd. You have agricultural greenhouse or nursery, then you have agricultural greenhouse and then retail nursery. Then you have agricultural, horticultural, floricultural, growing facilities other than greenhouses, and then you have greenhouses. And it's funny that other than greenhouses is a yes in the C1 off-highway, and then greenhouses is a yes in the C1 off-highway. So it just doesn't, kind of odd. So I incorporated them all in there. You know, the retail nursery is really the only thing that's not explicit, but retail nursery is actually covered under another bylaw. I'll find it if you want. Actually, I think it was, I was thinking that the fact that it says nursery, it's an allowed use, that you're not gonna just grow them for, you're always gonna be selling it if you have a nursery. So, that's the way I looked at it. Okay, it's good.
I think it's in the minor, maybe, or,
Language,
yeah.
Yeah, minor, or not minor, but just language, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Next one, poultry or stock raising, except that the number of swine shall be limited to not more than 5. And then poultry and stock raising. So I put in the, keeping the 5, just because that was the more restrictive, and when you have more than that, it becomes a real problem with neighbors, so.
Right.
Had this issue. This one's really language, I think.
Yeah.
I-
Article 19,
Yep,
commercial kennel. So they're written very closely the same. You know, with the 5 acres of land, the kennel enclosure, 100 feet from the property line, 500 feet to the neighboring dwelling, subject to a site plan approval. Then the next one's written pretty much the same way, but it's not italicized. And then you have kennels, commercial boarding and training, kennels, commercial breeder, which is basically the same things, but doesn't have the, really the the 5 acres of land and the 100 feet to the property, that's the most up-to-date zoning bylaw. So this other one, I think, is just an older bylaw that was never clarified. So that's why I put it in with the requirements, the land requirements, and the subject to the site plan approval. I put an asterisk in because, as you notice above, the special permit has an asterisk.
Right.
And I found out, doing some research, that was based on, because it needed the site plan approval. So,
And then that one, so this is planning board or zoning board? Because,
zoning board.
okay.
What was the difference between the first two? Just the italics, or is there something else?
Italics, just italics.
So I would say this is language.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, number 20.
20, so we have kennels, plural, personal, kennels, singular, personal, then personal kennel, more than 4 dogs. I can tell you that the last one is the one that is the latest rendition of the zoning. And
Yep.
so I kept that and brought everything down. So I think this one's
Yep.
just language.
I think it's language, and yes, the last one is correct because my kids want to get another dog, and I was like, we already have 3. Four is a kennel. Stop.
No,
But
it's
they're
more
all
than,
ado- I
it's
mean,
more
we've
than 4,
adopted
Chad.
them all.
So
They're all rescue dogs, and they're great, but no more. 3's enough.
do we have to care about the plural in the top kennels, right? Like,
I think it's just, I think if you have more than 4 dogs, it's a personal kennel.
okay.
So,
To go back, sorry, 19, what I was talking about, just curious question. So like the commercial kennel with the 5 acres in the C1 zone? It's a pretty high bar for area,
could be all wetlands.
yeah. I mean,
Just throwing that out there.
now, listen, we're not, again, another one, not changing it, because that's a well,
Beyond the
Nonetheless.
scope of what we're doing.
out of the scope, but just to, something interesting to, can think about, that's all. Sorry.
Okay, Article 21. So we have medical veterinary research facility and/or medical veterinary treatment facility. And we have animal hospital, animal hospitals and clinics, and then capital animal hospitals and clinic. I went with the capital animal hospital and clinic, knowing that we have research facility in the zoning. I believe we have treatment too. And it's actually another article.
So Bob, are you saying the medical veterinary research facility is part of the definition of animal hospital and clinic, or?
I would
Or
say
just-
that if it doesn't fall under that, it would fall under the research and laboratory facilities.
Okay.
That's further in the zoning.
Okay,
And, because it's not specific on whether it's medical or veterinarian, so.
so that would be something on the comments to mention that the medical veterinary research is listed under article blah, 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 and not. and-
I do have that in the comment.
Oh, do you? I'm sorry, I didn't scroll down to the next page.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
This is
Never
a
mind.
redundant bylaw, and the medical research and treatment facility is done on another bylaw, research facility, and it also has medical, dental, and optical clinics. And then
Okay.
we added the district use, so.
Okay.
Karen Riley, Hillary said there were that if you have more than one dog, you still need to set up as a kennel.
No.
No?
No. It's only if you have more than 4 dogs.
well, in the zoning, but this is Hillary from an animal perspective, maybe is that a animal control thing or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, alright,
I'll have to talk to her about it.
okay, alright. Sorry.
So, would you say that this is a more substantive change? Just because, I think it's still
Yeah.
language, honestly, because it's
For
still.
21, I would say it's language, because
Yeah.
you're eliminating something that's mentioned somewhere else. So you're not really eliminating it, you're just
Right.
cleaning it up. It's redundant, like you said.
Do you guys all agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, moving on, 22. This is where it
favorite
gets interesting, huh?
This is my favorite one.
Oh, God, I've seen these, yes. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
So, which one do you want to call it? We have restaurants, restaurant fast food restaurants. I don't need to read all of them, but, so I've amended to say restaurant, and then fast food restaurants, and then takeout restaurants. And only reason being is those are all three are defined in the definitions. Could we work on those later? Yes, I think we should.
Restaurant, is that not?
Well, our definition for
I got an
fast
easier
food says-
question for you. Restaurant itself used to be a yes in the B2, B4, and now it's a no in the B2, B4.
That's right.
Yeah, they contradict each other, don't they? Or,
Well, it used to be a
like
yes.
takeout, no.
Well, you have one, restaurant singular is a yes, but restaurants is blank, so it's a no. So, wow, yeah.
This is the problem we run into. So, fast food restaurant is a public eating establishment where the customer carries the purchased food to a seating area within the premises.
Okay.
Takeout, I think this is sort of
So can a
overboard.
fast food restaurant have a drive-through?
Well, a takeout restaurant is an establishment primarily retailing cooked food for consumption off the premises, excluding bakeries.
Okay.
This,
So,
and then restaurant,
What is the historical context of this? This is gonna be a fascinating story.
I think it was just pre-computers.
restaurant is a facility for serving of food or beverages only to persons inside a completely enclosed building.
So the whole definition of restaurant is
Wrong.
just wrong.
it's wrong. In today's world, every restaurant does Uber Eats and DoorDash. and
Especially in the
so-
last 2 years. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
if you don't want to do takeout, you just don't exist anymore. You're now a
It
takeout
has to be
restaurant.
completely indoors. You
Yeah.
can't have
Right.
seating area outdoors.
Oh man, this is weird.
See the quandary I'm in? This is exactly what I'm dealing with. Because I had somebody,
next year thing, 'cause
there you go, Rachel.
this
Go
might
on your
cause a
list.
couple of headaches, but
Yeah,
Reference them, we end up saying, well, put some bills in and then the special permit goes away.
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, what's Dunkin'? So Dunkin' has in-house plus drive-through, so
Now,
are they,
drive-through is a
they're both
special
fast
permit.
food and takeout.
And they make sandwiches. Does that mean they're
Yeah, they get a special
delicatessen?
permit for
Well,
that takeout,
And they're a bakery.
for that
which
window.
Technically,
Yeah,
you can't drive through, right?
right.
But this,
See, we're not gonna fix everything tonight,
Right.
because we can get caught up in all these weeds, and it's tough.
does this yes and no
Um,
contradict each other in the new?
You know, that should be a yes, restaurant, yeah,
Probably just a misprint.
yeah.
There's no conflict there, so.
Now, why is the proposed one singular restaurant and then everything, the other two are plural?
It's just, pick your poison, which one. I mean, you're gonna have a use, generally, it's gonna be one restaurant for, you know,
So then the amendment should be fast food restaurant, takeout restaurant.
probably should be.
Because you're not applying
If
for
that's
plural.
the
Yeah.
definition of restaurant.
Well, we just got to make sure there's actually a definition for that singular,
Oh, good point.
right? Or you change the top one to restaurants instead of restaurant, as long as there's a definition, oral version of it. And yeah, this
Fast
one's
food
going to
is
need some
singular
serious
restaurant.
work.
Fast food is singular?
Yep.
Okay.
So, you take that out. And then the takeout is singular,
Okay, cool.
and the restaurant is singular.
Great.
So, So, would you say that this is language?
I think it's language, but the visuals of this make it look like it's way more than language, just because it's a lot being condensed into 3 lines.
I think forget about the optics, we gotta just kind of say, do we believe that it's language, or do we believe that it's substance?
I think this is just language. It
You're
just
not changing
clarifies
it.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not,
think
we're
it's
not
language.
changing.
Yeah. Language, yeah.
I mean, the only restriction that you're changing is the singular version of restaurant is a yes, but down below it's a no, but there's nothing in the B2 or B4 districts, so.
That was a
it doesn't-
typo, he
and you-
said.
Yeah, that
That's
was,
you
going to
explain
yes.
it.
Chad, that was the typo. So we,
Oh, okay, I missed
Yeah.
that, I'm sorry.
Your comment may change, because now you're talking about
Right,
plural versus singular.
right.
You have to review the comment.
I think it's language. I agree with you guys. I think it's language. It's a lot, but I think it's language. And then, yeah, next year we need to look at cleaning it up, the whole definitions of all these.
Yep.
But for this purpose, taking those, 7 or 8 things and consolidating 3 is helpful.
It's a start anyways, you know. and then
Exactly.
Hopefully we can either clean up the definition and get rid of 2 of them, just have restaurant and,
I think that's next. That's the next phase next
Yeah.
year.
What do you, special permit in the zoning board for B1,
for takeout.
takeout
restaurants.
with drive up?
yeah, with the vehicular drive-up. The drive-up is another bylaw, actually, so it's covered under another bylaw.
So then this
Anytime, you-
bucket, this has got to go to minor, because now you're covering it somewhere else, right?
I think it's still under language, because these are just differences that are, dealt with in another bylaw, so it's just redundancy.
I agree. As long as you make that, update the comment to reflect that, I think it's language.
So which do you remember off the top of your head which bylaw it falls under?
Yeah, drive-up,
Drive up.
yep, I can probably find it pretty quickly here.
That makes the whole restaurant list even more confusing. We have a drive up.
Yes, it's on page 11. Drive-up windows or drive-up window?
But is it related to another new future article here?
It is. Which one, windows or window? Another language one.
On page 11, the document you have,
Yeah. Yep.
Right, but I think you got to point them to the new use that covers it.
So as long as it's defined elsewhere, then yeah, I think
Article
that takeout
38.
restaurants, the
38,
vehicular
yeah.
drive up or other in-vehicle patronage, if we remove that line, then yeah, that's just adhering to language cleanup.
And then all the numbering changes also.
Article 38. Article 23? We
Yep.
good with that, Article 22? Okay,
Yep.
Article 23, this is a hotel or lodging house, licensed in or hotel. So I went with licensed in or hotel. The only difference is the lodging house, and that's really under, allowed only in the B2 to B4, which isn't really anything. So, the B2 doesn't exist, and the B4 is a solar field. So,
Right.
so essentially, it wouldn't mean anything. So, to me, it's just a language change.
That sounds good to me.
One of our prior decisions, didn't we say that weren't we talking about when we removed something or we got rid of a condition for a district, then that would be considered substantial or not substantial, but not language cleanup?
Well, the fact that the only place that the lodging house is allowed would be the B2 to B4, and none of that exists to be able to do that.
I get that point. I just want to make sure we're being consistent, right? Like, and I could be wrong. I could be misremembering that.
Yeah, I think we're being consistent only because if it was allowed there and they could do it, then I would agree with you. But since they can't even do it anyways, it's kind of like, it's wrong to begin with,
Okay.
so. Is everybody in agreement with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Moving on to Article 24.
Yep.
So we have filling station storage, and then we have gasoline and diesel fuel filling stations. Knowing that we have a garage, generally would reflect like a repair garage, and we actually have the repair garage in the zoning as another use. So,
Great.
and I did write that in the comment. Pretty much a language change. Or should I say no, because the garage is more substantive, because the garage isn't gonna be included, but it falls under somewhere else.
What if it's both? If it's because we have, like in the town center,
Yep.
it's a filling station, and also they repair cars, right? So where do they fall?
Well, they would be doing a repair garage, and they have to get a special permit for a repair garage under the zoning, so.
So that use is defined elsewhere in the.
It is.
Yeah.
It's defined in the zoning bylaws.
It's defined, but it's also listed in the, if these were in alphabetical order.
That's what I
this
just
would go
wrote,
a lot faster.
alphabetized.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Here it is, on page 7, garage repair shops. And in the C1, it's a special permit by ZBA, and C1 off-highway, special permit by ZBA.
It's all mine. So this is the one that we're condensing. And then that has its own,
But here, garage is also allowed. Well, I guess they don't exist. It's allowed in C2 and C. Yeah, it does. It's kind of doesn't exist. So
And the filling station got prohibited in the B1, with the B1 changes.
Oh, okay.
that's right. It is prohibited, but the current gas station's grandfathered in.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The,
You mentioned this earlier, Brett. the new one has a mix of SP and SPZBs,
Yep.
and the thinking is that'll all change to SPZBs in
It
a
will be, yeah.
future meeting, or all in the same meeting also?
You know, after this meeting, I'll change them all to SPZB, so they're consistent.
Okay,
Or PB, whichever one it
right.
is.
So it'd be SPPB or SPZB.
Right, no more just SPs.
Right, correct. We want to be very specific if we can, so.
Yep. So then are we saying that this is just a language change since the garage is covered elsewhere?
I would say that.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep, I think so. Okay.
Okay, Article 25, newspaper or job.
Job, yeah. What's the definition of job printing? I don't have the definitions in front of me.
The duplication of printed materials on a wholesale or retail basis.
Not quite newspaper, but close enough.
Yeah,
Right, so I mean, this is a change. You are adding, we're now allowing newspaper in the B1 where it wasn't allowed.
So if,
correct.
let's say we had a definition for newspaper, or, we're not removing it, never mind.
Is printed material, though, if it's duplication of printed material,
Right.
does that mean that it's necessarily paper? Because we have the screen print place in the center of town.
True,
in the
we
B1.
do.
You know, we used to have newspapers in the center of town, too. I mean, we can just put this as a substance change and go with that.
I think so.
Okay. You guys in agreement?
Yep.
So it would be allowed in the B1, that's what we would change it to?
Yeah, the newspaper would be. That's the
Yep.
difference, so.
And so the difference between newspaper and job printing is,
Yeah,
I mean, one would more offices as opposed to just a printing facility, I don't know.
They produce
I would think
the
the job printing would be more offices than a newspaper, but I don't know how big the newspaper is. I remember the Globe used to have that last space next to Dailies, and, you know, that's where they would bring all their deliveries and then gets dispersed from that point.
So that's newspaper? Okay.
I don't know what
That
else it would be.
Was, right? But then job printing, is that like a FedEx office type thing? It could be FedEx office, could
Yeah.
be other printed materials, not necessarily paper.
Either way, it should be stuff that is, you know, I think adding yes to newspaper in B1 should not be
The
an
showstopper.
issue,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue, but it is a major change. 'Cause
Right,
we're-
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
okay. Article 26. So we have retail services, and then we have retail stores or establishments offering primarily retail services. So we went with retail services.
And what's the definition of retail services?
Printing of materials and, no, just kidding.
It says establishments providing retail services on the premises to the general public, e.g. barber shops, beauty shops, travel agencies.
Okay,
That's it.
Bunch of
That's the
things we don't
list.
have.
That's it.
yeah, okay, so it's language.
Yeah, and the second one was basically establishments offering primarily that service, so. So we're adding retail services to the C4, C6, which were retail stores that primarily offer retail services. So, I don't know, it's kind of semantics to me. Retail sales, this one's an interesting one. So we have retail I'll go through the list. Retail nursery, lawn and garden supplies, retail store, convenience stores, variety store, grocery store, hard goods sales stores, soft goods sales stores, electronic sales service, flooring material sale, furniture and home furnishing stores, hardware store, household appliance stores, automotive parts and accessories new. So I went with the retail sales. So right now we have 11 pages of this table. I'm hoping to cut this down in half by the time we're done with all this redundancy. If somebody was going to tell me that they want to put a flooring material store in there, I'd say that's retail sales. It would fall into that. The only one that I questioned a little bit was the retail nursery, lawn and garden supplies. But in the zoning, we also have lawn and garden supplies, which is,
That was by right too, right?
yeah,
So if you consolidate all that, under the C235, you have a yes, but up above it's a special permit.
Under retail store.
Store has special permit for C2, 3, and 5. So should that also, I mean, I know that there's nothing in those districts, but to
Yep.
stay consistent,
yep,
should that also be special permit down below when you consolidate?
yep.
I don't have any other comments.
Which is my one comment, which isn't necessarily an issue, because I do think these uses are overly specific, but from a scale perspective, there's a huge difference between a grocery store to a variety store to a convenience store, right? So does that matter in this type of conversation, or?
Not as far as use goes.
Okay.
It's a store, I mean, I think when they go for a site plan for these stores, you know, it's gonna matter, how you handle the parking and you know, the site itself. But if they had a strip mall and they wanna put a convenience store in, or any one of those other listed things, I'm gonna treat it the same way as the retail sales.
Okay.
So, there is the next article that I want to, is for lumber yards, and I did look at that a little bit differently than the other one, so, I was looking for the other part of that, the retail nursery. The nursery is in one of the articles we already did. The lawn and garden supplies is separated out. I just wanted to find that for you.
So in
think
terms
it's
of
at
like
the top.
B1,
Huh?
area, we got a footprint size limit.
Yeah, right.
And, as well as actually the C6, too. Not C1 though.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I also see your comment that you made about that special permit. You know,
Oh,
I guess that's your call if you want to carry the special permit down or make it a yes. You know.
I'm just gonna carry it down, and just try to be
Okay.
consistent with what's there. and
Okay.
we'll deal with it later on.
Yeah, because if you just carry it down, I think it's just language. If you carry the special permit down, then you're consolidating all those and it's just a language cleanup.
Yep.
Yep, agreed.
Oh, yeah, here it is. On page 8, it has lawn and garden supplies. And it's in the C1 district, and it's a yes. And I look at that as like they may have mulch or something like that. So that's why I didn't think that we need to carry that again when that part is already listed. And I'm not changing that one, so. All that. Okay, so this one, we're gonna just say is language.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Article 28. So this is about lumber and building supplies, and then lumber and building supply, storage and sales yard accessory to a building with a footprint in excess of 10,000 square feet. You know, I think this is a matter of, if you're gonna do a lumber or building supply store, you're gonna go through a site plan, and it's not something that, you know, isn't gonna be reviewed for the square footage of it. I don't think it really matters if it's in excess of 10,000 square feet or not. That's my point of view.
Well, and also, didn't you say if it's included in the system? Right.
So I'm just saying that we don't do the second one there. We only go with lumber and building supplies, and if that's the case, then it's part of what's gonna happen with the site plan. So that's just language.
Yep. Your language and your comments good, kind of explaining it's, yeah, you got the F11 process, it's gonna go through a site plan review. Yep.
Yep. Article 29, so I have banks and then automatic teller machines. And I went with banks and/or automatic teller machines. So, kind of open to, do you agree with that, or do you think we should have them two separate uses?
Well, it sounds like it's not just language, because it's a new use. in
Well, it's
some of
it's
those
incorporating the
zones.
two uses that are there. So,
Is there, so like an automatic teller machine could be one that's inside of a retail space as well?
could be.
Yep.
Okay.
It could also be standalone.
Yep.
So like if,
Doesn't have to be
C1
two. Sorry. Go ahead, Chad.
No. So, yeah, so right now, a teller machine's only allowed in B1 and you're expanding it to C1, 4, and 6.
Yep.
Right, that's why it's,
Substitute.
yeah,
Substantive change.
Yeah.
Which they already are anyway.
I was-
I know.
So that's just where my head was going. I'm like, yeah.
I know, I'm like,
Doesn't
I'm
say
pretty
they
sure I've
don't
been in the
exist.
C1 and it's got ATM, so,
Okay.
not saying, but
Okay.
they're probably grandfathered in. Maybe.
We're gonna go with that.
Yeah.
Someone may have missed that. Okay. So we're gonna do a substantive change on that.
Yeah.
Article, let's see if the town, let's see, this one is really up for debate, because I was kind of going forth on this. Have following service establishments directly with the customer, beauty salon, barber shop, which we have already with the retail services, collection center for dry cleaning and power laundry, dressmaker or tailor, shoe repair shop, clothing, rental establishment, household appliance repair, typewriter or computer repair shop. So that's all one. Then you have dry cleaning or power laundry, which is the definition for that. And then collection center for dry cleaning and laundry drop-off, or dry cleaning establishment, or laundromat. So I put them all in here, and the more I thought about it, I think maybe the first one would be a better one suited for collecting everything. The dry cleaning and power laundry, if we read that one, that definition, it's a building where retail, wholesale, laundry, and/or dry cleaning is done, including on-site commercial cleaning of carpets and rugs. You know, we may not want that in our, right now, it's a no in the B1 district, but, you know, based on all the other yeses I was flipping it. This one, I think we could work on this one a little bit more.
During our B1 conversations a couple of years ago, this specific, the dry cleaning piece came up. I remember this because
Yeah.
I learned a whole bunch about what dry cleaning is and chemicals involved, and that the laundry place here actually ships it somewhere else to do the actual cleaning. So
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really just a drop-off pickup.
yeah,
which in the first one does have that drop-off aspect.
It also counts as a retail service. I mean, they're not really doing the work there on site.
they press on site. They just don't clean on site.
Yeah, so if they actually do the work on site, then that would be a retail service.
Oh, okay.
Where
Yeah,
they're
you're
not
right.
doing all of it, I don't know.
Yeah.
The funny thing here is that first definition, first use, isn't even allowed in the B1. It's blank, it's a
Yeah.
no.
Oh, the collection?
But the collection center is a yes down below, where it's just
Right.
collection.
Right.
So, kind of really open, see where you guys want to go with
Yeah,
this.
this is you're right. This is a challenging one. I kind of thinking we got a big agenda tonight. Maybe this is one we need to revisit
Yep.
because we could spend quite a bit of time just trying to figure this out and discuss it, and maybe not even have a solution. Maybe we need to take this offline and kind of think about it and come back at the next meeting with some recommendations.
Yep.
I would love to, and I'll do this on my own, but I would love to go through the B1 recordings because this did come up and we did have a full-on conversation about it. So I want to remember why we kept it at no, because there was a
Okay.
reason for that. So
Okay.
yeah, we will circle back around to this later.
But
Yep.
the collection center is a yes,
Correct.
yeah.
Yes.
And I, because I think it's, you wanted to put the, where the food market used to be and everything, I know that their septic wouldn't handle it. So that could have been why they
Could have
just
been,
said,
yeah.
well, let's not do it.
So I don't want to belabor the point and spend a whole lot of time, but what if you, under the recommendation, what if you just had two lines, two rows? You had you have what you have there now, plus you add a row for the collection.
Mhm.
And so you consolidate 5 into 2.
Yeah, the only thing is that dry cleaning and power laundry is a no in the B1 district, and I put
Right.
it to yes. That may be a better no there.
Yes,
Because of that
right,
reason?
right.
And then put in the collection center as a yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just keep those two, and that kind of hit, I mean, unless you want to put a laundromat in there, which,
You can do that in the collection under that one.
and that's allowed.
Right. So yeah, I agree with what Gary's saying. You do a second row that's collection center for dry cleaning and laundry, drop off, and laundromats. Or laundromats, I guess you could say. You don't want to use or laundromats and make it a yes in B1.
So do you want to keep 3 of them then?
No, I think you just do 2. I think the second row is collection center for dry cleaning,
Laundry
and
drop
laundry
off.
drop off, and then or laundromats.
Oh, in that add or laundry, laundromat.
Right. Is that what you were getting at, Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you make that a yes in the B1, and then what you have there for dry cleaning or power laundry, you change the B1 to a no. And now you've got 2 rows that consolidates everything above. But I still think we should circle back on it. I'd like to know what, Gary, what you discussed on the B1 committee.
Yeah, me too. Can't remember. It seems like 5 years ago.
But I think that's a better, I think by having those 2 rows as the recommendation, that's better than what you have there, Bob, but I still think we need to circle back later.
Wasn't everybody fine with the idea of collection drop-off? They just don't want to see that type of operation in the B1. Like,
Yeah, I think it was as simple as that. I
that
think
was,
that was the
that was the
conversation.
issue, you know? Because they felt that drop-off collection is kind of a synergy of a good use for the town center, but I don't want to say go too far, but it's not quite industrial, but you know what I mean? It's not a,
It's industrial
Right.
chemicals. I think
you know,
it counts
it's
as
just more of industrial type use. Not
Yeah,
a-
yeah, yeah.
It's
not a town
industrial
center.
waste.
Right, yeah, that's the terminology, right.
Yeah, so,
All right, well, I'll rewrite it, and then we'll put on it, revisit,
Yep.
and you guys can think about that too.
Okay, I had one final question on that, Bob. On the first row of what's existing, why does under the B2 and 4, it says yes and no? Is it mean B2 it's a yes and B4 it's a no?
That's one of the quandaries of zoning. I don't know why they did that. I
Okay,
don't even know how to answer those questions, you know?
okay, all right. Well, we're gonna clean it all up, right?
That's what
So,
we're trying to do, yeah.
yeah. All right. Okay,
You know, it was an eye-opener when I actually started doing this. It was like, wow, we have got a lot of things that are messed up here, so,
Yeah.
but we're getting there. Moving on, Article 31.
Yep.
So garaging of more than one commercial vehicle, and then outdoor storage of more than one commercial vehicle, limited to the rear yard of a minimum 30,000 square foot land area. I put garaging of more than one commercial vehicle, and, which is a no in the residential. The B to 2 to 4 doesn't really matter, but I carried down the yes. The zoning, special permit by the zoning board for outdoor storage of more than one commercial vehicle limited to the rear yard. This is in the C1. And generally speaking, and this is just, I mean, there's some things that in zoning that it's really hard to manage. I mean, you have a company that they're parking some of their trucks in the backyard. They've got a fence going across that you can't see from the street as well. It's screened. As long as they're getting that special permit for the more than one commercial vehicle, or in some cases, it's more than 3 commercial vehicles, I don't worry about whether or not it's inside the building or parked out in the storage area. You know, it's hard to, I know what the zoning says, you know, I think the intent here is, you know, outdoor storage, but there's some that say indoor storage, and it's one of those things that's really difficult to try to get these guys to do. So, I send them to the ZBA when they have more than one on an on-highway and more than 3 on an off-highway, and then they, you know, they come up with a number, and it's kind of like, I think Carvana just had a special permit for like 40 trucks in the back, you know? So, as long as they're behind the fence, you know what, nobody seems to care about it. They wouldn't even know that they have 40 back there, but they're moving.
I don't know. I think John Welling, especially in the Pondville area, with what is it, Hunter Environmental?
Hunter Environmental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think it has to do partially with the abutters and their ability to view into the back of some of these, and so I think it, you know, there's definitely some delicateness that has to be had with those situations.
so it still would be special permit.
right.
Right.
So really,
Well, but
I mean,
you're, oh, go ahead, Bob.
I mean, and that's what the special permit's all about. It's conditioning these permits, so that, you don't have to worry about, if the neighbors, has a real problem with it, and they're there speaking up on it, then the ZBA can say, okay, we're gonna condition it to just 4, not 40,
Well, this
But-
talks about garaging, right? So literally, if it's inside the garage, it's a special permit?
yeah.
But does it really, I mean, if it's inside a garage, who cares?
Well, this one, garaging of more than one commercial vehicle. I know. That's where I don't hold a hard line to that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. As long
No,
as
I
it's
know,
behind
but-
it, in the storage area,
But to me, the word garaging means it's indoors and you can't see it, and you're eliminating the outdoor storage piece altogether. So there's no language about putting it outside, whether it's screened or not. There's no language about the outside storage of vehicles.
well, there is other language in like section J, there's outdoor storage shall be permitted as follows, and then it has 3 categories. Automobile and light truck, class 1 sales displayed at a minimum of 20 feet from the front lot line and in no way obstructing vehicle sight lines. Then retail nursery plant stock displayed at a minimum of 20 feet from the front lot line and in no way obstructing vehicle sight lines. And then this one is where everything falls under, is all other outdoor facilities for the storage of fuel, refuse, materials, and/or equipment shall be screened from view with a solid fence structure and located to the side or rear of the building to which it is accessory. The fence shall be a reasonable height of a minimum 6 feet, and the enclosure shall not exceed 1,000 square feet in area except by special permit from the planning board. So, that kind of encompasses everything. As long as it's behind that fenced area in the, the designated storage area that the planning board has done through site plan. I don't usually, I just know the number of vehicles and make sure they get the special permit for that, and, so.
Yep. Okay.
You gain a lot more by trying to combine these two? The one?
I just find that the second one isn't used that much, so I don't really, that's why I probably just decided to just do it with the one. I mean, if you guys feel like it should stay there, then I'll, let's just nix Article 31.
What do you guys
Second one is
think?
what- Is the garaging more than one, that one?
No, outdoor storage.
Outdoor storage, that's the one that would go away. And it's in the C1 under a special permit by the zoning board. Which would really deal with mainly the on-highway.
At least I was gonna ask you why you're doing away with outdoor storage, but
So garage-
You're probably right, Eric. We could just get rid of this article and just leave it the way it is. I mean, right now, there are guys that go out and get a special permit for those. The one that they just did for Carvana that's on highway, that's C1 on highway. And they gave him a special permit for, I think it was 40. Was it 40, Tim?
45.
45, yeah. So,
Well, technically, they haven't voted yet. but-
Well.
For the record.
oops.
Um,
So when do we take it away then?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think you just leave it as is.
yep. Good call. Article 32, same thing, now we're dealing with 3 vehicles. So let's do the same thing, just mix this one.
Yep.
Article 33, so indoor commercial recreation, and then indoor commercial recreation operated for profit. I don't see the difference between the two for use. So I just put indoor commercial recreation and put the yeses where it applies.
Somebody run a business, they didn't want to make any money?
I don't know.
Or something?
Yeah, that's, wonder why, yeah, it'd be interesting to know how that ever got added like that, but I agree with your recommendation, Bob.
Okay. Language or
Yeah,
substitute?
language.
Article 34, outdoor commercial recreation, and then we have outdoor commercial recreation operated for profit. Then outdoor commercial recreation operated for profit except golf course, driving range, miniature golf, and par 3 golf. But when you read the definition of outdoor commercial recreation, it says land including accessory structures on which the public is invited for a fee or membership charge to participate in any of the following athletic or recreational activities: soccer, football, baseball, softball, cricket, basketball, running, bicycling, golf, miniature golf, golf driving range, par 3 golf, tennis, handball, racquetball, paddle tennis, boating, training facilities for baseball, softball, soccer, golf, croquet, polo, badminton, bocce, frisbee, shuffleboard, horseshoes, and swimming. Really extensive list. So it doesn't make sense. It's contradicting the definition. So I just put outdoor commercial recreation and carried the yeses down, and I think that we kind of covers it.
Was this row here supposed to be part of?
It is, yeah. I cut and paste, so.
No pickleball.
Yeah, or
Unbelievable. It probably wasn't around then. Is that right?
Long time, yeah. It's coming
Wow.
back, that's all.
Districts, we're not gonna need them anymore.
Because we're not referencing those sections, right?
Right.
Because they're now.
Okay,
Yeah, those use tables in different
that makes
areas.
sense.
Okay, so that's language.
Right, language.
And then Article 36, we have exercise aerobic studio in small print. Wellness, dance, exercise, and aerobic studios, martial arts studio. And then we have dance or gymnastics school. I put everything under exercise and aerobic studio. And the definition is exercise.
I would say that's language.
Yeah. Instead of reading the whole thing, it includes, physical fitness training, yoga, the dance, has
So
dancing.
the only thing it's missing is where does martial arts fall? Does that fall under exercise?
I would say so.
I mean, yeah, how would you, if you had a martial arts studio come in, how would you, where,
I would put it under that, exercise and aerobics. Yeah.
all right.
So language on this?
Yes.
Yep.
Article 37, so I did incorporate the codification number here. Signs as provided for, and it's actually F9, but here we put in the 310-6.9, and then the signs that it's not capitalized as provided for in the same thing. So I just put it under capitals, signs,
So that's language.
yeah.
We're halfway through, right?
A little more than that.
We're getting there.
So the only thing I want to change is sign as, instead of the S, just because it's, the sign, the definition is singular here.
Okay.
You guys have a problem with that?
Yeah, so I would again say that's still language because, there is no, so you're saying there's no definition for the plural.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely language.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Okay, let's see, Article 38, drive-up windows and drive-up window. I went up with drive-up windows.
Wow.
And I would say that we should change this to the planning board across the board.
Yep.
So this would be substantive, and I actually had handwritten this in, by deleting the following and changing the special permit to the planning board.
So do we have two different definitions, one for the plural, one for the singular?
No.
No. So what's the definition? Is it the singular or plural?
Singular.
Singular.
Okay,
we should
so,
go to
so then
singular.
your amended one should be singular
Yeah.
as well.
Good call.
And, okay, I mean, so the top one, there is no definition for it. So I was just wondering if there was two definitions and there was discrepancy between them, but since there's not, it
So can
doesn't
you
make
have more
sense.
than one drive a window though? Is it okay? Just, even though it's singular, right? So,
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say singular.
well, the
What if
planning
it's a
board can make
McDonald's
that
with the
decision.
2 windows.
because a
Right.
lot of them have the two windows.
Yeah.
right?
You pay first, I think.
Now.
Well, I mean, yeah, right now we got to go with singular because that's the defined language in our bylaws. So if we want to make it plural, that's a whole nother topic for another day.
I think that would fall under the site plan and the, the special permit for it.
Just as
Yep.
long as it's interpreted, you could have
That's
two,
fine.
two separate ones. It's not,
Yeah, it's true.
right?
People interpret
True.
things differently.
Yeah.
Just-
Do you want to leave it as with the S and then they can
Can't we
assume?
bracket the S? Just insert the brackets around the S for drive a window.
Oh, that's a way of doing it.
That's actually a good way of doing it. No, but you'd have to also change it with the definition to match, right?
That's not that terrible.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you got
Yeah.
drive up window.
Well, the drive-up window could be the definition the way it is now, but with the S in the parentheses is just saying that you can have more than one of the drive-up
Yep.
windows.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah. It's a substance change anyway, so they're gonna
It is.
see it,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
Okay.
The heat on?
No.
Hopefully it's rain.
Water cooler.
Oh, okay, it's the water cooler.
Hopefully.
So we have Article 39. This is research and laboratory facilities, and then we have research facilities. And I just put it at research and laboratory facilities, and we have special permit by the ZBA on both of them.
We're taking this to account for animal as well.
It doesn't say whether it's medical or animal, so to me, if that's what they're doing, then that's what I would fall under. Language?
Yep.
Okay. Article 40. So again, this is one of these that, it's a small wastewater treatment facility as regulated by the town Board of Health. And then they basically say the same thing, to serve allowed or special permitted uses within the C4 district, that's the only difference, or to serve allowed or special permitted uses within the C6 district. So I just left it as special, small wastewater treatment facility as regulated by the town Board of Health, and then, the special permit
Yeah.
on each one of the different districts. So,
Well, we'll probably revisit too at some point. But
Yep.
and this one's
So I would-
language.
Language.
Okay. We're getting there. 41. So we have adult businesses, and then we have adult businesses limited to the adult business overlay district. This is really, comes down to, I think it's 2 lots on Sherwood Drive that are actually built for something else right now. So I went with adult business, limited to the adult business overlay district, and since that is in the C1 off-highway, it's a special permit by the zoning board, so everything else is no.
Right.
Anybody have any issues with that one? Language?
Language.
Article 42. And this one we may want to look at again, because they're talking about golf courses, excluding miniature golf, golf course, driving range, miniature golf, par 3 golf. And then I put in the golf course, driving range, miniature golf, par 3. I'm not sure I double-checked on this one to the outdoor commercial recreation,
Say,
because I think it fits all within that
yeah, that was,
Yeah,
definition.
because you mentioned that golf course, driving range, all those things were part of outdoor rec, so.
Yeah, so the only thing is, I have to check to see where that special permit is allowed on those, so let me take a quick look.
I don't
I
have.
mean, so if this aligns with the outdoor recreation, could you not just
Get rid of it.
eliminate this special call out for all the golf course altogether?
Yeah. The only thing is the outdoor recreation, commercial recreation is a yes in the C1 off-highway, and a yes in the C4, and a yes in the C6. This one
Okay.
gives it a little bit more leeway.
This one's a lot of special permit stuff. Okay, all right.
So,
It's a lot more land typically.
yeah. So I'll
And this would-
leave it the way it is then. The only thing, this is gonna contradict with the other one, where this says a special permit in the C1 off-highway, but, let's work on that later. Let's go with it the way it is right now, and then I'll say revisit on C1 off-highway. And outdoor commercial.
And I think like you said, Bob, I think you got to cross-check this with the outdoor recreational one as well to see.
I did, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's,
But we'll revisit. Yep.
yeah.
Oh, Bob, on that one before you go forward, if I could, why'd you take off the special permit C4? You have a comment on that.
Before is already developed, these uses would not be conducive for this area. We added driving range, miniature golf, par 3 golf to the R, B2 to B4, C2 to C5, C1 off-highway. That's probably because this is already built out. C4 is the Village of River's Edge, so I don't think they would have gone there, but you know what, why don't we carry it down, and there'll be something we can deal with later.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Tim. Okay. 43. So this is where that scoreboard went. You have municipal, county, state, or federal. And then you have post office, which is federal. You have municipal building, which would be municipal. Municipal uses, municipal. Senior center, which would be municipal. And scoreboard, which would be municipal. So that's why I put municipal, county, state, or federal.
Special permit, though,
Well, I carried all down, you know, special permit. If it was a yes and a special permit, I went with special permit. But if it was a yes, I just carried the yeses down.
right? Because you get away with changing this because except for us. I suppose protected.
See us building another senior center. The municipal uses that can happen
Just
for
saying,
recreation.
Yeah. Yeah, we can keep it the way. Both county, state, or federal is protected, right?
Yep,
So it doesn't matter to them.
yeah. You're not gonna tell the state what to do.
No.
Do you guys have, agree with these, or?
Yeah. I don't,
I'm fine with it. I guess the question is this a minor or a major change? It's not just language, because you are changing the
yeah.
the special permit one under
Yep.
the residential one. It's got a conflict, one yes, one special permit. So it's more than just language.
Yep.
So maybe, you know, that, I think that's where we just need to decide, is it a minor or major change? You know, what are the rest of the board?
Citizens change. What do you think?
So now we're doing the pavilion for the senior center. We gotta go for a special, right now, it's
Oh,
just site
boy.
plan.
So I just need to get it done before the next town meeting.
Isn't that municipal? Oh,
Yeah.
that would be, yeah, special
Yeah.
permit.
Would that convert to a special permit, the pavilion? Because right now it's
What
for the
was the
senior center.
permit going,
Huh?
they already did one for parking or something, right?
Right now, it's a yes under the residential.
No, well, I can't.
Well, this isn't gonna happen till November, so,
Yeah.
and then it has to go to the Attorney General, so you're gonna get it done before then, permitted?
I hope so. Yeah.
Gives you a little more reason to pick it up, huh? Tim, you have any problems with any of these?
In case of by scoreboard, there's no cross.
That's the way it is in the zoning. There's no, answer one way or the other. They just put it in there.
Can't keep score.
I mean, I guess you could always add a second row to the recommendation that is for the senior center with a yes. You leave what you have there for municipal, county, state, and federal, and then you add a second row proposing senior center with a yes in residential. I mean, that's the other alternative.
Yeah, we could change that at the last minute if they haven't got their act together on that, I guess.
I mean, it'd be consolidating 1, 2, 3, 4. It'd be consolidating 6 into 2.
Yep.
So that's better than what we have now.
Yeah, I think there'll be people that go, well, isn't the senior center municipal?
They would, but then they would see that one special permit and one's allowed by right.
Yeah, yep. Okay,
That makes
I'll
more
add that
sense.
to it then.
Just a thought.
You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
Yep, 44.
44, see if the town will amend Norfolk zoning bylaw. The I-7 uses permitted and regulated in the B1 district by amending to read as follows, where it says, uses existing proposed. I forget this, that's why I'm looking at it, reading it.
You're amending it to point to the use, to the use table, D2, schedule use regulations, work
Yeah.
regulations.
Yep. So we just,
Yep.
this is, and this D2 may not be D2, it may be appendix
Yeah, right.
1A or something, but essentially just making it so that each one of these sections are now pointing to the use table.
Right. So the only gotcha I see with this at town meeting is, what if some of the things get voted in but not others? And also, what if Article 44 doesn't get, so you create the table, but then Article 44 doesn't pass, which would be silly.
I think all those have to be language ones, and,
Yes, that's a language one, I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well-
44 to 47 are all language ones, and
Yes.
it's just pointing them in the right direction. Because you
Right.
can't vote for the first article and then not vote for this article.
Well, in theory, you could, but that's why if we bundle them together,
Right,
then yeah. I feel like we run into this often.
yeah.
That's probably the
Right.
best way to do it.
I know, right.
It's trying to put the cart, the horse before the cart, and it's
Right.
hard to do sometimes. Bundle with,
Okay. Yeah, those are all, I agree. I think those are all language just to point to this new table that you're grading.
I have a question. So we're talking about bundling here. Don't we have to present these as articles and the select board chooses what to bundle, or can we present to them a giant article that is like, say, 12 of what we're looking at here in this packet, and then they decide what to move forward with?
I think
Like
you're gonna
the town
recommend.
administrator, or not, the meeting, who runs the meeting? What's his name again?
Jay?
Yeah,
That's-
no, but
that's-
what's his?
that's
yeah.
during the meeting, but the
he
select
chooses
board-
which to.
Select board still has to,
Don't,
I think you,
don't we recommend what we want to bundle?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the select board either accepts it or denies it?
yeah, you,
Yeah.
correct,
okay.
yep.
So that's pretty much it. There is another one here that, I just made the notation that all the uses allowed in the on-highway area, will have to be, spelled out, and I'll spell it out in this next version,
Okay.
that they're allowed in the off-highway,
Oh, okay,
so.
gotcha.
And probably putting in the comment that all empty boxes will signify a no to that use, similar to the zoning article D1B. Any use not specifically enumerated in the district herein shall be deemed prohibited. So I'll probably make that an article to put at the end of the table as some comments that should be there just for reference.
Yep.
The temporary family apartments was supposed to be taken out back in 2004. There's a couple references to it that I'm trying, and I have the article, so I'm trying to get town council to say, yeah, you can just eliminate it, just like part of the codification that was done. And the next one, the D2 isn't clear. The SP is all for the zoning board and the D2 table, so we've already talked about that. The asterisks for the special permit was for the site plan requirement on the kennel. I think that's it.
So those things, I would assume would be all part of language, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
If we're talking about bundling, which we're hoping to do, that would be in the language bundle.
Yeah, I mean, the comments may need to be an article just for clarification in the zoning
That's
as
true.
part of the table.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I'll clarify some of these things with town council, before we meet again.
Okay.
So,
First I want to say thank you, Bob. This is a huge undertaking, and it's
well, I didn't lose anybody today. It seemed like everybody was engaged in it, which was nice to see,
Highly commendable work, though. I agree with what Chad says.
Thanks.
One quick question on the bundling. Rich, the bundling does change the method by which a motion would pass, though. I believe it's 2/3 versus unanimous. If we bundle,
All
is
this
that
will be
correct?
all this will be 2/3, because they're zoning articles.
All of it will be 2/3
Yeah.
because it's done.
There isn't
Got it. Okay,
anything-
thank you.
We're not doing anything in this set that would allow us to do the simple majority vote.
Yeah.
Only,
Okay, I remember that from before. Thanks.
yeah, the stuff we did for the B1 had the newer provisions, the housing choice.
All right.
So, how do you-
Anything else you want to discuss while I'm here, or you guys have other business?
oh, do want to touch on the sign bylaw, so.
The next item is the sign bylaw.
Okay.
So
Well, we
anything
went
else,
over it.
Bob? I did, again, I want to say thank you for working on this. I'm sure this took a tremendous amount of time and it's going to pay off in dividends down the road.
I hope so. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
We had talked about the sign bylaw, and in the zoning, F9A18 is a bylaw that, is a special permitted bylaw that basically, if a business feels as though they should want to have larger signs than what the zoning requires, or more signs than the zoning requires, then they can file for a special permit with the planning board for that purpose under that bylaw, which, when we were looking at the changes, a lot of them were being redundant with, since we have that bylaw in place right now. So, I don't know what other changes you were referencing, other than the internally illuminated signs.
I
Yeah.
think that's the big piece of it is the internally or backlit
Yeah.
signs.
I like it just because we're dealing with all different types of people with all different ideas. I like it when the planning board looks at it. That's just my take on it.
yeah, so when we started, the last planning board meeting, well, actually last week, right? So, I threw out to start the conversation about what I showed you, and then I know Chris had a comment that in terms of, looked like Norwood sign code had probably more of what we were looking to give consideration to. So
With internally illuminated signs or other signs?
just signage in general.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking proposed to do, and then we talked in general, right? So eventually get it down. So this proposal, at least what I started with, was special permit planning board. Norwood's got a little mix. It's got permits straight through to the building inspector for signage. That varies a little bit what we're trying to get to, and then it has special permits, so it's a little bit of a mix. So I think may make sense is I'll sit down with you, review what Norwood is, what we had, and then come back with a revision to the board to move to the next phase to give consideration. Because, again, we don't want to, at least I think the goal is to get some, we want to have something for the businesses at the November town meeting. It's been long overdue, right? So if we tweak, kind of tweak or blend, and then we'll present it to the board, which there is, which is on the agenda, housing production plan, so it's going to give me some latitude to say the select board meet August 2nd, and we were going to, at least initially, the plan was to have the chair come to that meeting. But maybe we could have the planning board just have a meeting to bless a revision to the zoning bylaw for the sign to present. Because I don't have something in front of you yet. Or we could do a special meeting, like a Zoom meeting, just so you can review another version of the sign bylaw to keep it on the train going forward here. Just throwing around some options.
So, but do we have something ready we don't have anything yet ready to present. When you said the select board's meeting August 2nd,
Yeah. Yeah, select board meeting on a second.
that's like next week. Or that's in 2 weeks, I'm
2
sorry.
weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty darn close, yeah, no, I know. But again, it's to, we can, it's gonna be tough, it's timing, but we can put an article in as a placeholder and still work it through, as an option before it gets, all the way to town meeting, in terms of when the warrant's gotta get, published and so forth. It's not super clean.
Well, I think the warrant closes on September 1st, so you do
Yeah.
have some time to work
But
on
in
it.
terms of like listening to what the advisory board had wanted to see going forward, it's not super clean. for
No,
them.
it's
You know
it's
what I mean?
not. And we brought a proposal to town. We brought a warrant, a signed modification warrant to town meeting. What was it, 2 years ago?
No, a year
The
ago.
last year.
Yeah, and I did that, and the intent was for the town to try to set the example of having an internally illuminated sign
Right.
on Town Hill, and then open it up to businesses, after we kind of
Right.
get our feet wet with it, kind of, per se. But, the intent was to open it up to the businesses. It's just,
And that got bring something that's half baked back to town meeting and have it get killed again. So I think we're there. We got two options here. We spend the time, make sure it's right, take it to spring meeting, or we really dedicate the time that's needed to do this right and get it ready for fall. No matter which we do, I want to make sure we do it right and put the time and effort into it. It was kind of a last minute thing last fall, and it didn't go over very well. So
No,
kind of just live and learn. I mean, so if
Yeah,
we're gonna
no.
do it, let's do it. Yeah.
no,
And
definitely.
I know, Rich, you've been working on it because we got the feedback from the small business, from the community, from the Small Business Association, and so that's good. So I guess the question is, what are those? So the next steps, we go through that again. The next steps would be put a placeholder in for town meeting,
Yeah,
and then we
placeholder
gotta
in.
get something figured out to get to the select board soon.
Yeah, so the idea would be a placeholder. I'll go back and, based on Bob's comments too, I think we could expand the sphere of the planning board through a special permit to give more latitude with signage and not necessarily get in specifying sizes and so forth yet to get moving. And then we're gonna have to, it's not gonna be a one and done. Sign bylaws, when you go down this pathway, you'll be at it.
Right.
That's just the way it is when it comes to signage.
past experience, it's difficult.
So if we just prepare people up front, all in parties included, when you go down the sign bylaw path, it's gonna be reiterations, there's gonna be changes, it's constantly evolving.
Right.
And if you're okay with that and not take this one shot, one bite of the apple, we're done, that's not real the real world anyway, but for people to grasp the concept, then I think we need to give it a really good shot, because again, we could, as we go, we could put design guidelines together, eventually we could offline this to the design review board. There's a whole different other pathways, but to get that through the sale process, which is town meeting, is no easy task.
Right. Well, and you also got to loop in advisory board
Correct.
as well. And I know that from past experience, they're like, well, why don't you just do it all and be done with it? Well, that's not how life works. But in a perfect world, I would love to do that. But
Right.
you
But I
get,
think
like
if
you
you
said,
play
Rich,
back
you
this
gotta-
meeting tonight, you had 3 hours on one topic, just to,
Right.
just to understand it's not, zoning takes time. It's not
does.
simple stuff.
Right.
And, but at the same time, we don't want to, I think we could put something to get going. Like, I feel like,
Okay.
these businesses, We need help
What's the
now.
rest of the board feel?
I think it definitely needs some time and work with the advisory board at least to get their feedback on our initial ideas. I just can't imagine that we'll do it and do it well in the next couple of weeks. But if you guys all think we can, I'm happy to jump on board and do what we can. I just can't imagine. I mean, nothing really gets done and done well in 2 weeks, especially when we want their buy-in. We want to know what they've heard from business owners. We heard from Jen, but, what else do they have for data points that we should be factoring in before just bringing something to the advisory board, and then they're like, no, you should have come to us and asked for A, B, and C before you spent all this time.
I think if we go down the avenue of what Rich mentioned with the special permit, we still open ourselves up to that ambiguity that needs to be kind of agreed upon, at least within our walls of the board, as we approve on the special permit basis.
Yeah, I think having the design guidelines ahead of time and even some maybe visual, show some visuals of what we mean by, backlit versus monument versus whatever it may be. And then having maybe some sizes and the imagery will help. And the design guidelines, can you have colors, can you not? Can you have neon, things like that I'm sure will come up. And people might be hesitant at town meeting to vote yes on that because they don't have the right information yet to actually be able to make an informed decision. I'm happy to help put that presentation together. I just don't know that we're going to get it done in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. Because, like I said, I don't want to rush it and have it. I want to do it right, and I'm concerned that we may not have enough time.
It is, we know what the real answer is, that we can't do it. We have to start now.
Definitely.
Put something
Well-
together the best we can for the next couple of weeks and
Yep.
see what it looks like, I mean,
Right. So how about that? Let's start, but I don't think we can. I don't know if we can necessarily say we need to put a placeholder. I don't know if we'll have a warrant ready for
Yeah.
town meeting in the fall, but we should still start now.
There's no proof of concept signed bylaw that we can pitch as the businesses in town want this help now. Here's what we can give them. It might require, a special permit, and, that leads itself to a bunch of ambiguity that we would prefer not to have, but at least it gives them the option now, and then the intent is to fully flesh out and, a more explicit bylaw that allows for the signage that we're all looking for and the town is happy with. There has to be a way to do that. I'm not saying we have to do that, but there has to be precedent.
No, I agree, and that was my intent with, stating that the Norwood bylaws had a pretty good solid provisions for signage. Obviously, Rich has looked through that and I think consolidated some of the meatier portions into his document, which he wants to, review now. But in looking at the document Rich prepared, it's probably a third, if not maybe a quarter of the length of what Norwood is providing. So I know there's obviously things that are missing that we may have wanted to added in there, but it might make sense for us to look at other towns as well and see what their bylaws include. Sharon, for example, I think they have pretty decent signage in their town as well. So I think there's more research that needs to be had. But to everyone's point, I think we need to start now and not ideally target November's meeting, but really start getting on the docket for the spring meeting and keep that as our finish line going forward.
Yeah,
I mean, if miraculously we get something ready for fall, that's great. But I don't want it. You're right. Let's not wait. Let's keep moving forward with it. So, yeah.
I personally think it should be an agenda item every planning board meeting until it's complete, personally.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I have no, I think that,
Gary, Eric, did you, either one of you have any thoughts?
I can see that process going. Keep it on each meeting. Yeah. And get something new and better.
Yep. All right, so with that said, Rich, I mean, what, regarding the signing, what, I guess, what do you want to go over tonight, or,
so for tonight, no, I
Okay.
think there's enough discussion, and we'll gather, I'll pull together more towns and
okay,
see what we have, you know, to do some analysis, and then we can put something together from there.
right. I think it would be, and so I think it would be good if we give select board and advisory board just a heads up that we're working on it.
Yeah.
Just so they know it's coming.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, we don't have, it's like, we're working on it.
Yep,
And
no, absolutely.
we would appreciate any comments you do have, but we're working, you know, we don't have anything ready for you to review.
No, I 100% agree. We'll send it
Yep.
off to them, let them know, FYI, this is on the work plan, it's coming, and,
Yep.
and,
And maybe small business association too, let
yeah,
them
same
know.
with them, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, but, you know, so there's no surprise that this is being
Right.
worked on.
Yep. Sounds good.
In the same vein that we've reached out to the public with regards to Southwoods on like our website with the questionnaire, is it possible for us to do similar for the signage? Ask the town to provide examples of what they believe good signage is, and that they would be happy and proud to see around our own town.
Yeah, so, I would think so, we could put something out there requesting. Yeah, I think.
And alternatively, I don't know if it makes sense to do like a subcommittee or something like that. I don't know if we have enough time for an actual committee.
No, I think it's a great idea, because one of the things that, and the small businesses, so everybody's busy, is send us pictures of signage that you
Good
like.
and bad.
Good and bad, and tell
Yeah.
us where it is. So that way we can then go back and say, okay, that signage was in XY town, that's not what you like. And we can kind of then work, because what's on paper and then what you see, they don't, you can have now, take this for what it is, okay? No disrespect to Norwood, okay? But I will tell you, there's a lot of bad signage in Norwood, okay? And I
Those
wouldn't
cafes and institutions.
necessarily consider that an example of good signage. So, again, it's, that place versus it's kind of the same, it kind of gets back to, not to too far afield here, the same thing when we talked about the B1 stuff, we're talking about, mixed use and this and that. You put a name in with a town, and the signage might be good, and then you lose people in translation, because like, oh, Norwood, that sign, auto mile, signage, that's terrible. Now, but they have a good bylaw, so over time, we have to do the homework to say, well, that sign was under the old sign bylaw, it's
Right.
not the new sign, right? So,
This is a lot of work, clearly, and we all know that. And we have a lot of stuff on our docket already looking forward to for 6 months. Chris just mentioned something, same thing I mentioned last meeting. This may be subcommittee material. You get 2 people from planning board to sit on that. I'm sure we can get 2 volunteers from us.
yeah,
You get somebody from SBA, you get 2 residents at large. That's their goal for whether it's 2 months or 6 months. And then they work in conjunction with the planning board as a whole, and we'll come up with something good like we did with B1, and we'll get it passed.
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially on this topic, because,
Because it needs focus, right? And
Yeah.
like we've got, this is the shortest agenda we've had since I joined, right? But usually it's pages, So if you've got people that are willing to take their time to really hyper focus on it, we'll get good results.
all right.
I think that's a good idea.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
and you're right, Gary. This is the shortest agenda, but this is also our second meeting this
Up to 10, yeah.
All right, let's, so two things. Subcommittee, I think is great. I think we should, you know,
The chair has to call for that, right? Isn't there a formal subcommittee process?
Oh, really?
It has to get approved by select board.
yeah, I need to, tune up on my, subcommittee.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure what the process is to form this subcommittee either.
I don't know either, but I'm happy to work on it if it gets created. Otherwise, I'll work on it anyway and just work with other people around. If you need some.
Because I think it's, not that we're trying to, you know, subcommittees can do the work and not have to necessarily be strictly adhere to the open meeting law, to give you a little more agileness, so to speak, to do the work and then present it to the board versus how we compose that. So let me do a little homework and, you know,
Okay.
at least that's as I understand it.
I could pull
All right.
in the advisory board from the start.
I already did last week.
I did make the mistake, unfortunately, in terms of our bylaw, our town bylaw. Advisory board can't be on any other committees except for the capital planning committee. So
Oh,
we just
okay.
kept rolling with that. So because it made, at least from a practical standpoint, it made sense to have them involved, so they would be involved from the start. But the bylaw prohibited, so it was.
Advisory board was part of B1.
It was.
Had a rep to the,
They
right?
did, but technically they shouldn't have been doing it.
Oh,
But we, you know, kept rolling because can't change the world in a day, so to speak. And I think their input was very valuable to the process
Sure.
from the start. You know, to kind of be a liaison back to the board. But
Yeah.
Right.
I think I have enough on this
Okay.
direction. Therefore, Bob doesn't have to stay around for the rest of the two.
Bob can go into somewhere that has AC.
Yeah.
We got
Right.
2 more hours left, so you have a good night.
So we got, but we do have
Thank you for
two-
volunteering.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
What?
All right, well, one's on here, which is good, the housing production plan, but I thought I had the master plan on here, I didn't.
No, I guess that'll have to go under new business. It's kind of like old business, but it's new old
Yeah,
business.
yeah, new old bit, all right, there we go, thanks. So, help me out. So in terms of draft housing production plan, we are on a very accelerated timeline, so I said that to you in the email.
Yeah.
And in terms of the accelerated timeline, so that way when our plan, which will expire in October, we don't have a lapse to get the plan
Right.
through the process to get approved by DHCD. A couple things. One big takeaway, I know it's a large document, but the substance of which I would call, it's not as much as it may seem at first, in terms of goals and strategies. And we don't have a comparison, or in terms of what the 2017, what we did and what we haven't done as of yet. We're gonna ask the consultant to do that, Chad. I know you had asked me about that, which I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, it's like a 70-some page document, and I wasn't on the board,
No,
so
I know you weren't.
back in 17, so I have no reference to go by, and I started skimming it, and then I was like, okay, it would be great if we had some sort of an executive summary or just something that pointed out the changes.
Yes.
Agreed.
So well, Sue is online virtually to aid in the conversation with us. So we talked about getting that from Jen Golson's firm, consultant firm. I will tell you, it's eerily similar from 2017 to the goals of 2022.
Okay.
So it's not, I'll quickly, one difference design guidelines for the B1 zone is not in 2022. It was on the list for 2017. We did it.
Right.
There was a change, a goal to add payment in lieu from the last plan. We did it. So there are, but the bigger things on here, you know, we're still talking about vibrancy in town center, adding housing. We're talking about diverse housing types. We're talking about, you know, infrastructure. And what I have on the screen is actually 2017, just so if you want to look at it.
I mean, like, so,
You don't have anything shared, Rich.
oh, we see it.
You don't see it?
Nope. Excuse me.
So did you not see the zoning bylaws on this? Let's ask Andrew then.
There we go.
There you go. Aha. Okay.
And now?
Yeah. And let me just pause 1 second. When we had the last public workshop on June 28th, Jen Golson had said to us that it's not a static plan. So if things come up over this next 5-year horizon, if we felt that it was warrant of an update or a clarification on the plan, we do have that latitude to do that.
Okay. Okay.
It's not going to extend the life, though. You know, we can change things, but it's still going to be a 5-year plan.
What's the process to change things along the way? What's involved in that?
But we'd have to draft whatever that changes, agree to a voter here locally, and then send up to DHCD to have them modify the plan. Okay, but so let me just step back. So in terms of, yes, comments are due by the end of the week. And it is a short timeline. I completely understand that. But the reason why that is so that way the consultant, Golson Associates, can turn around a draft for the select board for the August 2nd meeting, and they need to get it to them for the 28th of July. And then hopefully, which the select board, and they're even under the gun, and I could fully understand that, to at least bless it to get it up to DHCD to get it through the review process up there with them. With the whole, keeping in mind the whole idea of getting this plan so we don't have a lapse.
What happens if there is a lapse, just out of curiosity?
Don't know. I didn't ask that question yet. It's some question
Okay,
that we do
all right,
want.
so let's try and avoid that.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid that question.
So if I could interject here for a second,
Sure.
this is a housing production plan update. I haven't received confirmation yet, but one of my questions that I will get confirmation on is, my understanding is that we're allowed to do an update because we haven't had a lapse. If we have a lapse, potentially, we could have to come back with a new plan.
Oh.
Now, it wouldn't really be all that different. It might be larger because we might have to, include everything that was in our initial plan, which we've changed some things, or the consultants made some recommendations, and Rich and I have made some recommendations. So I don't know that that's 100% true. 2017 was a long time ago in my mind to try to remember that, but that's my understanding. I will try to get confirmation of that, is that we would no longer be allowed to just submit an update. We would be required to submit a new plan. And we don't want to do that. This was very expensive to get done. And we'd really like to not have a lapse.
Okay.
And a little bit of a silver lining for the planning board is we're not asking for a vote.
Yeah, that was my next question, is what are
Yeah.
you looking for from
So
us?
it's just comments, it's not a vote. Now,
Okay.
unfortunately, the select board is more in the hot seat, correct? So
Okay.
And if I could just let everybody know that the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust we reviewed this in our meeting today, and we made, we saw some typographical errors. We saw some numbers on one page that were different from other pages. We saw, a reference that 4 schools were located in Norfolk. We know only 3 are in Norfolk, 1 is in Rentham. So if it's those types of changes, I think it's very safe for the planning board to assume that Rich has reviewed the document completely as well, that we've caught kind of all of that.
If you catch something, that's fine, too. I mean, you know.
Correct.
I'm not, if there's something missing, I mean, so it's not.
So this plan is
So the-
based on the 2010
it-
survey
it-
still, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It's not based on the new
Census?
census, correct?
No, and Rich and I talked about that, but they don't have those numbers hard and firm, so they are not able to use those numbers.
So we're still trying to get 124 new additional units right now, and that's 16 units a year. 8 years, but the goal is to get 80 of them over 5 years.
Yeah, so, let me see what page. We did have them, I'm trying to remember where it was. We did have them include 2020, just so you see it, even though it's not official yet, in terms of what that number is, and I think the number is what,
173 additional.
173 additional.
Right.
Because just by way of background, what we have done within town hall is we've been tracking building permits over the last decade, and then those numbers that we have at the town level get sent off, and they work their way back to so there is a circling back on the dwelling unit count overall. So we have a relative confident idea. We know what that number is, but it hasn't been officially published by the Census Bureau yet. We don't have a lot of transient housing, so like we're not like other towns, so our number's probably pretty accurate. So I try. So do you remember what page? I'm trying to think where the heck it was. Go back and see 2020. Oh yeah, so I think it's on page 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So on page 10 is where we did have them include what it would be in terms of the 2020 count. 173.
So where does the 16?
So 16 represents 0.5% of the total dwelling. So 16 is for the safe harbor. And so 16 units represents 1 year safe harbor. 32 units represents a year of safe harbor, which is that
2 years.
2 years. sorry.
32 units is 2 years.
2 years. So it's a temporary break, if you will, for us in terms of affordable
And
housing.
we're currently in safe harbor right now until
We are out. What's 22nd? Friday?
We are out
We're
Friday.
out Friday.
We've been in safe harbor for 2 years.
2 years. And Friday we were out. So what that means? What does that mean? Well, it means applicants can come in now.
You're gonna have a flood of applicants Monday. Just kidding. Just
Well,
kidding.
I'll cross my fingers. Hopefully not, but the door is open again, essentially, for potential applicants. Is not lurking out there. Looking for a site eligibility too, so that's part of the early process. But it could pop up, I don't know. But as of right now, we don't have anything. All right.
How do what's the process to get back on safe harbor, or can we not get on safe harbor again?
So we can.
No, we can. We would have to produce 16 affordable units. And then we would apply for safe harbor.
Okay.
And then we
Constructed
would
or
be
permanent?
granted safe harbor for a year.
Okay.
And when I say produce, I don't mean they have to actually be built. The special permit through the zoning board of appeals has to be filed with the clerk's office. The date that clerk stamps that that's approved, we can apply for safe harbor.
Okay.
So there's a list of upcoming ones that are,
So the more recent ones that got us safe harbor was Lakeland Hills, Waits Crossing.
Waits Crossing.
Which was formerly Abbeville. The residents at Norfolk Station. Those three. Well, the Enclave. No, the Enclave didn't, sorry.
No, we got the first year, remember, and then we piggybacked
Yeah.
on a couple of, probably 4 or 5 months later, we piggybacked on the second 16, so we got to the 2-year safe harbor.
So now those are falling off. So now they'll, once they get their occupancy permit, like the other ones that have been built in town, Sue puts the paperwork together, submits a DHCD, goes through the process with them, and then it will get added back in. But as of Friday, those ones that are there, they're gonna fall off. And then once they get built, then they come back on. Now, if you had, if we had that wonderful project that got us to 10%, permitted and got to construction right away, all the stars were lined up, that would be the ultimate scenario, but that's not our situation.
No, and there are, there are many communities that are where we are, struggling to make that 10% happen. But there are also many communities that aren't as active as the town of Norfolk is in trying to reach that goal.
Correct, right. So the good news is that the town, through the trust, through Sue, has been adding units, with, money from CPC. We've got, there's money that came in from the payment in lieu project, the subdivision that was approved, which was $300,000. So they're actively, for a small town, very active in terms of producing local units, buying houses within the community and converting them to affordable housing. So that'll continue. The overall plan.
You're saying comments, or you need to send this to the select board on Friday,
July 28th.
July 28th. So you just want us to provide comments by the end of the week,
Right.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
Or if you have any questions, if I know that Rich is usually always available to you, but you feel free to reach out to me as well.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
contact Sue directly.
We've worked together on it.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. And the document, Rich, that's in our shared drive, is that,
That's the
I'm
drill.
assuming that was added yesterday, so it doesn't have today's changes or updates or anything, so.
Correct.
No.
No,
All right.
I am gonna try to accomplish that tomorrow. So if I am able to do that, I will send it to Rich so that he can share that with you.
Okay,
The changes will all be tracked, so
Oh,
you'll be able to see what's been changed. But the chair of the Housing Trust had 4 pages of changes, so that's one member of the trust. So there's a lot
Okay.
for me to change. I'll do my best, though.
okay. Well, thank you, Sue. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a
Does
good night.
Board have any other questions for Sue?
I had one. On page 15, strategy 4 was about Southwood, and there's some implementation milestones. I don't think we're glossing over the big problem there, right?
Well, they identify Southwood as a parcel, if you will, Eric, that should be identified in the housing production plan as an area where they feel that multi-use housing, maybe with some commercial, that there's a lot of opportunity there. They understand that Southwood is a contaminated site. And the Buckley and Mann property was identified, I believe, in our 2017 plan. So, just because it's identified doesn't mean, they also identify the parcels in the center of town. One of those parcels is now the residents at Norfolk Station, but those parcels are all privately owned. So while it's terrific that they identify them, if people don't want to sell their land, or if a developer isn't willing to put in what needs to be done to clean up Southwood, we're not gonna move forward on those projects. They're just identified for potential plausible.
Right, but we can't necessarily tick off any of these implementation milestones or get through them until some information is known about the site.
Correct,
That are
correct.
listed here right now.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and this kind of, Sue is actually spot on with all these comments about this, and it kind of gets to, this same site was in the 2017 plan, and it didn't, but hopefully the one positive thing between 2017 and today, there was actually, it's not with the Archdiocese anymore, and it really had no traction, and now there's a buyer who's looking to do something and is going through the environmental process, which we didn't, that's a pretty big step compared to 2017 in lots of ways, actually. So,
Yep.
but so if you want to just send your comments just to me, no, don't copy, just send them directly to me. Don't copy the board. And then I can send them to Sue if you have any additional comments.
Okay.
And then they can run through those comments. In terms of, if there is any other questions you want to jump back to the zoning stuff.
Conversation was riveting. With it.
I appreciate you staying on for all of that, Sue. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right.
All right.
All right, thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
So quick update in terms of the zoning district boundary change, which is up.
It's
Andrew, switch it over. There you go.
Yep, there it
Excellent.
goes. Yep.
Okay. So, the board reviewed the fire station last week, and there was discussion about the buffer along the boundary abutting the Federated Church. I'll forward it to you. I did have a letter from town council. I did forward an email before from town council about that this little adjustment into the district in terms of extend the B1 district onto the residentially zoned property, which is the R2 where the church is, would not negatively impact the church. I did get the letter this afternoon on letterhead, because that was something that the church wanted, not just an email form. I'll forward it to all the board members, but in terms of, I think this is a viable and something the planning board should consider recommending to town meeting
Okay.
to make this adjustment. And the rationale is that, their need to put a buffer between the church parking lot and the fire station, while the fire station is a residential lot. You all talked about line of sight and public safety. So if the zoning changes, it kind of all goes away because it makes a lot of sense. And I think, having revisited that thought a little bit more from the last meeting, I think it's even more critical, because, the fire station is going to be up over here,
Right.
and there's Dunkin' Donuts right over there. And,
Yeah, the driveway for the fire station's pretty much where your cursor is right now.
right,
Yeah.
so that's not very far from right there, so.
Right.
The notion of putting vegetation there is not
It's not smart.
not smart planning, actually, to be honest about it. So this zoning change would just take that off the table, so there's no debate about it, I know it's November, but I think it should continue down the same path, So I would ask the board to at least recommend this change. Now, what I'll do is I'll ask Barry LaRiviere, who's our DPW Assistant Director, to actually produce a better, this is,
He's gonna have to draft a
yeah,
warrant
this is,
article.
this is a level above crayons, this thing before you here. But it just shows you, at least graphically, what I'm talking about, then I'll provide you with a better, actually, what it'll look like to include. So just as a placeholder for town meeting, and then we'll get a better map with the zoning map to show it for article form.
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And as long as the church is okay with it and the DPW understands it, what they're doing, and I'm assuming you've talked to the fire chief as well. But then it does eliminate that whole issue of the buffer on that side, of the need for the landscape buffer, which is going to be a site distance problem.
What's that?
You need to get a surveyor just to be able to find that corner and legally describe it.
No, we have enough, because it's actually so the one line on the right is the property boundary, and then the rest we can float it by distance. I probably need a little bit of work on my description there, but, we'll have a description describing, and then the map will show it with it dimensionally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I will need it doesn't need to be survey quality.
That's what I'm trying to,
Yeah, it doesn't, no.
I think you need to find it in different directions, but
No. I need to kind of follow the process surveyor with, running and all that, but it doesn't have to be survey quality. Particularly now with the GIS maps, you just lay it on top, overlay on top of the parcel map. So what do I do here? So, yeah. Maybe I see some of these dimensions already there.
Isn't there a third image on the next page? I wasn't sure what that was. Yeah. What is that big triangle?
Well,
Is
that
that
was a
just-
bigger change.
Oh, okay.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wasn't that's why I put it on the third page.
Okay.
I was really going for option one, to meet the spirit of intent to bring it over, and so
At work, we always frame it in three options, and like the worst one's over on the right. The one you want people to go to is the one in the middle,
or the middle.
and then
Alright.
the one
Right.
on the left's a little
Alright.
silly.
Let's test, the mill's got nothing, so I have to remember that
It's
for next time.
It's
Double
the no build on one end, and then take it
Yeah.
all on the other end,
Yeah.
and
No,
yeah,
the
and then-
left side would be cars on fire, right, and like a whole bunch of crashes. Yeah, that's just what you explain.
Oh no, let's not do that.
All right, I have to.
I understand what you mean.
So is that what do you think? Somebody want to make a motion to that effect, and we can, and this is really just a placeholder. I'm gonna give you, you'll have the actual, this is.
yeah, proceed with the,
Yeah, to proceed with that zoning change, but the actual.
So what motion are you looking for? Just for us to endorse
sponsor
it?
to sponsor the zoning district boundary change between the Federated Church, which is at 1 Union Street, to the fire station located, you can reference that document, I don't have a date on it, but. 'Cause it's
So-
like,
Shouldn't we have something more substantive, though, for us to be motioning on? I mean,
no, just directing Rich to keep working on it.
I
So
gotta
the
keep-
motion is
I gotta keep
you're
working on
looking
it.
for a motion just to create, draft a warrant article.
Yeah.
Is that right? But do you really need a motion for that?
I don't know. I like them, but if you don't wanna, I can give it back to, I can,
I mean, I'm not sure what we'd be motioning. That's what
Yeah, I
I'm
get
getting.
what you're
Yeah,
saying.
like what
they
Chris
always
is
have to
saying.
have a sponsor, though, that's the thing. They can't go sponsorless, these articles, but,
I mean, as far as I can tell, we don't have an actual text for what the warrant would read either, do we?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Let's do this. I'll send off a letter like I typically do anyway, of potential zoning changes
Mm-hmm.
to, I mean, they did vote earlier tonight, the select board to, for interim town administrator.
Okay.
And I'll just follow past practice in terms of like, okay, here's the list of potential articles as placeholders, and I can come back with it. Because like I said,
Okay.
the warrant's open, it hasn't closed yet, so,
Okay.
and then you could actually vote it on the 30th of August.
It's on the 9th?
No,
No.
August 30th.
You have it on the 30th? Okay.
August
I have
30th.
another one on the 9th for some reason.
It was originally the 9th, but you moved it.
Oh, right.
Got it. I just didn't take it off my calendar.
Yeah, there was quite a few of us, myself included, were not available on the 9th.
All right, so I got enough
Okay.
to, all right.
So any other zoning?
Oh, well,
I shouldn't have asked. No, I'm kidding.
let me just, let me forward it. So Jonathan Ackley in the building department office did do a little homework on corner lots.
Okay.
And let me see if I can get to my email.
Which we talked about it, I think, at our last meeting.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was on your list, and actually,
Yeah, it's on the list.
let me see my email. We're pretty consistent with surrounding towns.
With not
No,
not having any language about a corner lot.
right? Defining with 2 front yards.
Really?
Yeah, I'll forward his email, but Jonathan sent
Well,
this
just
to me.
I mean, just because the other towns don't
Yeah.
spell it out doesn't mean we have to also not spell it out. I mean, we could take the lead on this.
No, that's a good point. We could take a lead. So in terms of the towns, you looked at Franklin, Medfield, Rentham, Millis, Medway, Foxborough, Walpole, and Norwood.
Wow. Okay.
Walpole is the only town that considers 1 yard abutting the street to be the front yard, while the other be 2 side yards.
Okay.
So we could follow, so I can get Walpole's to take a look at it.
2 side yards or 2 front yards?
No, 1 front yard and
One
2 side yards.
Okay. Yeah, so it'd be good to see what Walpole's doing since they're the only one in nearby that's.
Yeah, so I can,
How many properties in town did we say this affects roughly? Didn't this come up a couple of meetings ago?
that's quite a bit.
It's Gary asking the questions that matter. I like
Huh?
it.
How many properties does it affect?
Yeah, we talked about that a while
I
ago.
know you
We
guys-
did talk about it.
And I think I thought it would be a minimal number, but I remember it being surprised by it, so I'm assuming it was substantial.
I think, I'm not sure with the overall amount of, I think the people who we heard from directly were in the situation where they became a corner lot when a new subdivision came in. So they-
We had some in my neighborhood too, with pools. During COVID, everybody in the neighborhood got pools.
Yeah,
And there were some people that weren't able to get a pool because even though their yard was completely fenced in, you couldn't see the pool. It was not allowed because it was 2 frontages. Somebody else, I think, with an accessory building.
yeah.
Apparently, they're all in my neighborhood, but there were quite a few.
So why don't
Yeah,
same path. I'll get Walpole, see what they have, and if it seems reasonable, I hate to dare to say this, so hopefully it's not that complicated in terms of how to put something in there.
Yeah.
And-
I'd like to see what Walpole has and then kind of also get Bob's, because Bob's the one that's got to enforce this. So like to
Well,
find
yeah,
out.
definitely review them, because they feel like no change is needed.
That's right, you did mention
Right.
that at the last
So
meeting,
this
yeah.
is on the planning board to-do list.
Right. Yep,
So I'll, whatever we come up with, I'll send it to them to get their opinion about it,
yeah,
to get their thoughts, so. All right, I'll send that to you.
okay.
And last but not least, the master plan,
Yep, so old new business?
old new business. Yes.
Yep.
So to answer some of the questions, I know people, you got back to me. It's probably a relic of the past of having a paper, so just to clarify, I was just talking about a paper, bound response to the RFP.
Me too.
You know,
They are expensive.
and so I did hear, I spoke quite a long conversation with one of the consultants that it's a mix. Some towns have gone totally electronic submittals and no paper. It really kind of get a sense of where you're at with the community, I think, in some cases. Who is, like, I can tell you, I know communities, if I was in there, there was no way they would accept electronic. It'd be all paper, a bound copy. So that certainly is a way, one, to save them some money, but also be a little bit easier to respond. So that seemed to make logical sense. In terms of the number of master plan, hard copies of the master plan, we actually do have, within the budget, we do have a printing budget. So we don't necessarily have to tie it to the money through the article for the master plan on printing and decide. So we could, that's another area where we can reduce that amount, which you're gonna want color, you're gonna want, so if you're printing it, it's a big expense. And it probably could equal up to $5,000, I would imagine, if you really get to it, because we typically have sometimes those 11x17 maps, which are even harder or more costly, and they fold them into so that's another area we can certainly change to help out. Probably the bigger one potentially is to do it the phased approach, right? So phase one is existing condition, trends, and visioning, which is really the kind of the engine of the public participation with the budget we have now, and then go back to get the implementation part of the budget. And that way, the consultant, who at least I talked to and have had some other conversations, they know that they have the budget for that piece. And then the town, so it really kind of puts more, shifts more to the town. We've got to get the money to finish this thing, right? So they're not at risk.
So on that regard, was that a fear of some? It's like, well, hey, you want us to do this whole thing, you have a budget of X, but you've only appropriated a portion of X.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't the advisory board also want you to just go get all the money up front?
No, so it's kind of Murphy's Law on this stuff. So originally submitting it to the town administrator and the finance director, the discussion was $100,000, a significant amount of money in terms of all the priorities and so forth. And there was skepticism about even funding $1 of it. Well, if the hill is going to be that high and steep, it's a mountain, let's do it. Let's say we know what the budget, we have the overall budget, let's break it down. So that was a decision, which, as we know, we got to town meeting, we heard the opposite from some people.
Yeah.
Let's just
Right.
fund the 100,000. Those, in that particular case, Ed Haddad was on the B1 committee. He was involved with it, had a lot of, he went through the process and understood it. And so I guess it was I don't know if it's a bad decision per se. I mean, but I probably, if I had 100,000, then might have voted it down too. I don't know. The vote wasn't taken, right? But there is a little bit of that, uncertainty. So that,
Blythe also mentioned that, let's do the 50,000 this year because it's in this fiscal year, and then the other 50,000 would be in the next fiscal year, and so there's a little bit of that too.
Right, yeah, no, that was part of it, yep.
Yeah.
Break it apart. But the idea of having it in the article is at least so town meeting knows that this whole thing is it's done now. I mean, it's not like projects are done that way, obviously your parallel, the town meeting's gonna appropriate the next time. but
Right.
It's not unheard of, that approach, it just, so that probably played a factor too, a little bit. I don't know how much, because we didn't get a lot of responses, and there was a ton of, I guess, master plans looking for proposals when we were out there. So, there was a pretty high demand, for responses. And so there was, obviously picking and choosing. 3 weeks is fine, that's long enough, so I did at least get confirmation that wasn't, it was July 7th, which is kind of tough after,
Yeah, true.
right before the 4th of July, so it might have had a little bit of a factor in terms of the response. And so the thought, which I sent you an email, is put it back out middle of August for 3 weeks, get it back in September, and then, make a selection.
So, yeah, your recommendation was then with two modifications. One was to split it into phases, like you mentioned, and the other was to reduce the number of hard copies to, I believe, 3. And it would be hard copies for the final report,
The final report, yeah,
not the submittal.
no.
Okay.
Right.
And so is there a requirement, like a town requirement, that we should have a hard copy, or is that just our preference to have some hard copies?
It's just preference to have it, so you
Okay.
at least have one, so if somebody wanted to,
Okay.
I mean,
I think 3's reasonable. I think you had 25 in there. That's,
it was a
Yeah,
pretty
and
high
this-
number.
yeah, that's right. I mean,
I've also been down the other road where it's like, oh yeah, we want hard copies too, when doing this before, so it's kind of like, we'll see. I mean,
right.
we can, but the idea of reducing it now, it's better from a, putting it out for response. And if we need more money and there's a rationale why we need more to print, we can make that case as opposed to having a
Right.
requirement, right? So that's
Right.
the thought.
I mean, I would prefer an electronic copy that's searchable, so I don't want to scan PDF that was scanned with OCR and it's not great. I want like a real PDF that was converted from whatever tool they use to create the document, Word or whatever,
So that's what I would put in the RFP to make it clear that's part of the requirement.
Yes, that.
I don't think it's probably not in there right now. I'll go back.
Yeah,
and
I
make
don't
sure
want
it's
to.
very
I don't want to
clear.
necessarily say, "Oh, it has to be done in Word," because they might want to use. I'm drawing a blank, but some Adobe products to create it.
Yeah,
but-
maybe they're Mac people, they do pages, I don't know.
Yeah,
Right, but whatever, I know what you're saying.
yeah. I wanted something it's electronic and searchable.
Yeah,
Correct.
they'll usually
Easily.
use like a Word or it could be Adobe and then convert it to a PDF that's searchable.
Yeah. So what is it? Adobe InDesign or is that
That's
right?
one of them.
Or Publisher? Or, yeah. No, Publisher's Microsoft.
InDesign is used
I
sometimes.
think we were
Yeah.
still asking for paper copies of graphics, right, that to take on the road for presentations and,
Yeah, so we would get paper for that, like during the master plan process. Yeah, we would still have that, but in terms of just the end
final
product.
deliverable.
Yeah, the deliverable.
Yeah.
And so, so I can't recall what I wrote, so basically it was what, get it out and get it back by September 12th, I think I figured work backwards.
Okay.
And the other side to that, I did look into, so MAPC, they do master plans and they're currently doing Renthams right now, and they're doing Dedhams. They've done they've done, I think, 3 or 4 other towns. You don't need to go through the procurement process for them because they're a regional planning agency, so they have an exemption under state law. They didn't submit either because they were too strapped for July. But so if we decision to go out for an RFP, they certainly can submit a proposal and be potentially interviewed to do it as well as others. So it would open it up. It wouldn't just be, so I think that's a roundabout answer, or roundabout recommendation to just put it back out. If MAPC wants to respond, they can, and if they don't, they don't. So you get a bigger potential, hopefully, responses back, and see what we get with some of these other changes. So what I would do is I just revise the RFP, send it to you, and just take a look at it, and then we'll put it back out for response.
You need a revised timeline in there?
Yeah, I'll have to update the timeline, yeah. I'll have to change it all out. I mean, the 16 months, we were talking to one of the consultants, was a reasonable time to do a master plan in terms of the overall time.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it can go faster, it's just that, there is public engagement, there's, volunteer people, so it's not just, that's usually what kind of drives the timeline a little bit. And there might be some different events and activities that are going on that we might want to be able to hit too, that kind of stuff, so. But 16 months was reasonable timeframe. And this is a new plan, because they looked at our old plan. This is our old plan, and they did great work, so I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
Who's they?
The master plan steering committee that did it in 2000.
Sure.
It was residents, this is volunteers. If you go back and look at that list, the people involved had a lot of good experience, they had even professional experience, so the town was fortunate. I think they got a lot of work because they were in the field too, right? So they were able to capture that, so. But the public engagement piece has risen much higher importance through this processes, and that's where, you need some horsepower behind it, 'Cause,
So I like all that, Rich. What, do you need anything from us tonight? Like a vote to put it back out with those modifications, or I don't think you do, but
No,
I'm just asking.
no, I don't think so, unless you really wanna vote, I'll just put it back
No.
out. I'll just have you take a look at it before I put it out, that's all. So you take a look
Okay.
at it and give me
All
your
right.
comments, make sure I didn't miss
All right.
anything.
And I was, or I have a copy of the original master plan, well, not original, but the 2007?
Seven?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I have the previous master plan, we'll just say. I don't remember the exact year. But I have it that Walter handed down to me. So I have a hard copy of it if anybody would like to see it.
Never will I say yes to a hard copy.
It's still digitally available on the website.
It is, I found
It is, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
But
It
that
is.
was a tradition, we're trying to,
That's nice.
we're trying to marriage the old with the new, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Unite, I don't know. Maybe portrait.
I like
Whatever,
electronic, but I do have a hard copy that was bequeathed to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for us older people like myself, I still like things in hard copy sometimes too. But,
Killing trees, like killing trees.
listen, we are killing less trees, how's that? All right,
That's good.
how's that? We certainly reduced, so anyway, so I think that covers it. for-
I think that was good. Any other new business?
No.
Nope.
As you know, the remote was voted at the 11:59 hour. So remote
Meetings?
meetings that extended to March 31st of 2023.
Nice.
Okay. That's great. It's good to know.
So we're still there, and hopefully they'll get it together and figure it out permanently, not just these little.
I know.
Yeah, I think they should extend that indefinitely because it just allows more people to participate on boards. I mean, I'm out of town for work. Chris has got other, he's home for other issues. I mean, but it still allows us to be engaged and be useful members of the community and volunteer on these boards. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to. I would have had to not take this trip this week. Would
And
have just
also
moved
for the
to-
residents who want to participate, or even, I always watched, when I was home, I would watch the, during COVID, I would watch all the recordings on YouTube, which is
Yeah.
how I got up to speed.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to your select board members, have them codify it. Don't have to wait.
I
for the
know,
state.
I know.
Yeah, not even select board. I'm pretty sure Kevin put that on his Facebook the other day, that he wanted to codify that when he gets to the State House.
But the town can do it.
Ah,
But
even
they'll probably
better.
do it now, so,
Yeah,
I mean,
the town.
So you don't have to,
I mean, or you can just vote for Kevin, but.
Right. So,
the.
all right. Well, if there's no new business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor will do roll call. Chris,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.